It's literally PTSD when I watched that video because that was one of the worst trips of my life. I don't know why I played it. It was just what I had close by to make an intro on. But
Yeah.
where you see, so that kid's my son. He went down and literally took 2 hours to come back up in 80 yards. And that's
There
him,
you go.
when he's holding that dog out. That dog didn't want to move. It was tuckered out. And so even you'll see him on the mule. He would walk, but did not want to walk. So we ended up throwing him on a mule. And, man, are you eating something good?
I'm not eating nothing.
That's a cigar, ain't it?
Is it?
He's I can't find my cutter, so I'm just using my extremely short knife.
Just chew on it a little bit. It'll crack it open. I've been smoking my pipe a lot lately. I got a little cheap pipe, but I got my cigar.
That explains. My stepdad brought me a bunch of cigars for my wedding, so
there you go.
There it is.
Let's see who's here tonight already, bitching about me not being.
Oh, there's plenty.
This, however, is extremely good.
Shorts posted. I just saw
there. You go.
Jim Nanny, Tim B, Louisiana hunting. Hunting from the campground. Jeremy, I dumped the box at 6 a.m. on that one and pulled them off at 7:30. Short day. I guess. Oh, I wasn't on last week, was I?
Nah.
No, man. I made it to Prescott. My daughter was graduating Thursday, and I thought I was going to leave by 10. But I'm married and have kids, so I left by 1, and I was in Prescott, and I was in my Magnum actually. So we were flying down through there, and just, man, I didn't hit town about 5:20. None of them ate, so I stopped to get something to eat, and realized, man, I'm not even gonna make it. So
yeah, it's all right. Good for Cody Lynn. Even though she became a cop, good for her.
Yeah, I know. You know who, you might be here tonight, you know who called me and congratulated her? Wayne Bisbee.
Hey, I believe that.
I said, now you got to put under F the police on your tattoo, except for Cody. So you better get that taken care of.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I got to release a bear with Game and Fish. That's so cool to just.
That's awesome.
Was that with your boy or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So,
I'll tell you what, we're going to have to be careful around Chris. He's got a cop kid and a Game and Fish kid. I'm not telling him shit no more.
Yeah, I ain't going to say nothing about confidential informant, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Undercover. Yeah, he's undercover.
What like Louisiana said.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know. I've had even my close friend of mine that we kind of got started bear hunting together. He says, man, I listened to that Bear Grease podcast with that undercover guy. And, man, I'm really kind of doubting our friendship. There's a lot of stuff that resonates there. I said, just be careful what you do around me is all.
It's got to be like me. Just don't be good enough to get told on. You don't got to worry about it. This guy sucked too bad.
When I tell people it's not hard. It's not hard to go be an outlaw. It's hard not to get caught. And anybody who's gotten caught is the only outlaw out there. And it's for stupid reasons. And today it's so easy. I mean, it is easy to get caught because, for one, they'll subpoena your Onyx, right? Oh. Your GPS on your truck. Even my Tundra. I don't have like all that stuff. I don't have nothing hooked up on my truck, but I'll tell you about that. I used to be a repo guy. Even when they cut cords on those, there's always another one on there. A lot of people don't think, they think, oh, there's just one, those. And I repoed off the reservation, and the natives cut those a lot. I had somebody that was charging $150 to cut them, but I still found them. Even when they're turned off, you can still find them.
There's always a way nowadays. Yeah. There's always a way. Jules listens to a lot of murder podcasts, and the number one way most people get caught is they just can't leave their phone at home.
Yep.
They won't. And if Well, I mean, I could tell you how to get out of all that, but the best way to get out of that is don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But people are so afraid to leave their house without a phone. Or, I mean, I could get in my first gen Cummins or my 1980 Toyota, and I could take my longbow, and I can leave my phone at home, and they're not going to catch you. Now, the problem is a lot of times these people get caught because there was some dude out there in the hills. I was out south 20 years ago, me and my buddy. And we're out in the hills. We was actually doing some mining and hunting. And I'm talking middle of nowhere. And we was on the, this was long enough ago, we was on the reservation, dumping mines. And I'm talking middle of nowhere. There was a couple out there hiking. I don't know what they're doing on the reservation, but they didn't know we were there. And there's people who don't know you're there. Like there's people out there you don't know is there. And that's how you see there's videos being took of people, and you're like, that's how they get caught. Or,
it's a common idea that when you go out in the middle of nowhere that you are alone. That there's nobody else out there. There's nobody else doing this, what I'm doing today. It's just like when you live on a long, dirt road and you see somebody walking down it or something that you never seen. You're like, what the hell is this person doing? It's like, well, it's just a dirt road, it's just unsuspecting, but we forget that's something I've it's been on topic lately, oddly enough, is that there's millions and millions of people in this world. And we kind of seem to forget that everybody else, nobody else could possibly have the same idea as me today, and that's just more likely than what we like to believe. And
well, she listens to those murder podcasts. They say that in your lifetime, I got a dog who won't shut up. In your lifetime, you'll walk by 34 murders. 34 murders. How many people get murdered in the? You know what I mean? They don't catch hundreds of murders a day.
Right.
So these murders, I mean, just the reservation, Apache, this was years ago, were like 18 to 20 murders a month.
Yeah.
You know.
They got a big problem on the reservation.
They do. And I wish someone would go in and do a covert investigation. I wanted to, but you literally have to rent a car, go in for a day, do it, come back in a month and do another segment and get it all put together, because they don't like you. They don't like you
around
on the res. They don't, because if you found out kind of what was going on, it'd be pretty bad. Politics down there is just as bad as our government. It's worse.
It says on average there are 44.7 murders per day in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
And you're telling me one person's killing 10 of them? No.
Right now in LA, there's probably 44.7 a day.
Yeah.
That's what it is per day on the U.S. average.
That's Trump's fault. That's all Trump's fault.
Oh yeah.
Let's not start this.
Look, I told him. Dustin said, "What are we talking about?" I said, "I don't know. Let's talk about starting puppies." I said, "But California's getting brought up." He goes, "No." So, anyway, that's a train wreck in itself. Period.
Yeah.
Well,
stupid.
What do you guys want? What about starting puppies? Where do you want to start on starting puppies? How about that? Let's just roll into that.
I've started probably 98% of my puppies.
Yeah. Same.
Well, wait. First, let's just congratulate Mr. Ball and Chain over here for getting married.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Fellas, cheers.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think
I don't know about the cheers part.
Well, I think everybody marries up in their life, but I think he kind of outdid us all. Let's just say.
I outkicked my coverage by about 1,000 yards. So
yeah. I met Jules a long time ago before she knew Brandon, and when I did a podcast with Brandon and figured out that he was dating Jules, I was like, God. I did it myself, but I mean, he won up to me and just kept going.
Either she was super desperate, or he has good game. That's all I can say.
One of the two. Either way, he made it all the way to the altar and didn't run away. So I mean, whatever it takes.
There you go.
Like Chris said, congratulations. I hope the day was great.
And it was, yeah.
Wish you guys the best for sure.
I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, it's a different feeling, that's for sure. It's definitely a big step in manhood. I think it changes you big time, especially when you really understand what the day is all about and what's coming forward. So I think that it's something that, especially as a houndsman, it's kind of a scary thing, like getting into a serious relationship, because I think we've heard the horror stories of how many divorces some guys have been through.
Yours?
Don't ask Chris. Chris is on like number 4. So.
I'm only on my 3rd wife, who just walked in, and she's the most best wife I've ever had my entire life. Entire life. I promise, baby.
Yeah. And speaking of the next murder.
Yeah, if he disappears, I would not blame her one bit.
No. We just say the Apaches got him.
Yeah,
that is true. I'll be one of those on the red. I'm gonna turn this camera on you. Yep. Well, and I think you have kind of a special relationship too, because she travels as well. She has her things she's doing, and it's in the same field.
Yeah. So, yeah, but we were just talking about this yesterday. She's kind of been poisoned by the dogs too. Just horn hunting isn't exciting anymore. Mm-hmm. She's like,
look at Sarah. She's one of them bird people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Better than the rest of us people. But the hounds, man, she jumps in those hounds. Even my wife. My wife is like,
they get you.
Mm-hmm. My wife is like, she's from Illinois. I mean, we're talking born Democrat kind of stuff. And she comes over here, and and then she moves in with me, and I got 20 dogs. She's learned to start counting them now.
Oh, dude, the day she wakes up from her dream is going to be an interesting
one. Same thing that Jules said. She goes, when I first moved in, you had 12 dogs. Now you got 24. I'm like, times 2, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know really how to.
There's 2 of us.
Or sometimes I'm like, really? Yeah. I have that many?
Well, no kidding.
How did I get that? Yeah.
When they start getting smart. Yeah. When they start getting smart, what you have to do is be smarter. So when I get another dog, I buy a barrel real quick and put it under another tree with a chain that's empty. So she says, I thought we had an empty chain. I said, oh, yeah, it's right there. Yeah. But I'm running out of trees, man. Someone asked me, how many dogs you got? And I said, oh, I don't know. See, I knew I left 6 on the chain last time. And 2 of them are my labs. So I had 6 on the chain, but I had 3 running loose. They're kind of my kill whatever comes in my yard. And I had 10 in my truck. So I'm like, yeah, they go, how many you have? And I said, oh, I left 6 at home. They're like, you got 10. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's 16, 17, 18. I got like 20 dogs here, plus Stinker, So I had 11 dogs with me. But
yeah, I just had to count too, because I just sold a bunch and picked up a few more and stuff. And so it's been, it's in and out. But I got a couple of young ones that I'm going to start farting around with. I think as far as starting puppies goes, my form of like starting a puppy, especially since I've been doing basically nothing but dirt hunting for the last year and a half, is more hands-on time. And I got them living inside more. I keep them. I think we talked about a little bit this, last time I was on, is I like to keep my puppies inside for at least a month. For the first month, just that way they get to know, their name. I get to know. They understand down, and they understand come here kind of thing, and just the very, very simple things. And then that way, when I take them out to the kennel and they're not going to see me as much, they at least know those bare minimums that's going to make my life a little bit easier. That's going to put me through, to the next stage of training. That's going to not be such a headache of screaming at dogs and trying to yank them by the ear and things like that. So that would be in my sense of starting a puppy. I think that's about the beginning part for me, because I don't know if you can really simulate lion hunting in the dirt in a way for a puppy. I don't think it's absolutely possible to do it in a way that you're going to go, yeah, that's going to really translate over.
No, I mean, I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I mean, the first 6 months of a pup's life, I just let them be, whether it's at the house, spending time with you. I mean, my kids will mess with them and they'll do little like bacon drags or stuff like that. And I leave that totally up to them. And I think starting pups from someone that's just getting into it and someone that's established is very, very different. Because for me, when I first got into it, I was doing drags. I was doing everything I could. I was doing trainers. I was doing drags. I was doing all this. But once I got established and had older dogs and everything like that, I got to a point where I would just let a pup be a pup till he showed me he wanted something more.
Yep. And
once they showed they wanted something more, I would just transition it into, I'd find a track, do whatever. If I had a good lion track or a good bear race, depending on the time of the year, I would just let that pup decide. I'll turn it out with a collar at 8 months old. And if it wants to go with the dogs, it'll go with the dogs. And if it doesn't make the race, fine. I will, if it makes it halfway, I will do whatever I have to go get that pup because he tried. If he didn't, great. If he stays with me and walks into the tree, great. Eventually they'll start to work through it. But I definitely saw how I treated pups very, very different from when I first got into it to when I was established for 10 years and had a good pack, a great working pack that knew the drill. So I think where you're at in your journey on hounds can be very different on how you start a dog, if that makes sense.
That's very true. And thinking back to it, I did the exact same thing when I first got dogs. It was, doing everything you possibly could, not only because you're super freaking excited because you got hounds and you want to do everything you can. And everybody's usually when you first get hounds, a lot of people are kind of not really against you, but they're like, good luck, and you're like, yeah, well, I'm going to prove you, and it's like, I'm going to get this dog to catch something its first year. And so you're hell bound on doing whatever you can to make that happen. And some people get lucky and they get an older dog, right off the get, but I didn't have that. I had some mediocre dog, that was like 4 or 5. And then I had some, puppies, and so it was just a matter of getting out and putting the boots on ground and doing the physical labor of it all, hiking 3/4 of a mile through the woods with the drag and then coming all the way back and getting the dogs out and, helping them through it all and all that stuff. And so, I agree exactly. Everything that you said is pretty well on the spot, that it does absolutely depend where you're at in your hound hunting career for sure.
Oh, definitely. And it also depends on what you're after too, versus, coons, versus cats, bears. It can all be different. If you're after dogs that do multiple game, it all depends on the time of year they're born on what they start.
Right.
I mean, it's not my favorite to start a young pup on bear if I'm really focusing on lions, especially dry ground. To me, I think it kind of makes a little more sense to hold them off, because if you start them hot and fast on bears, it definitely takes them a little more time to realize, shit, I gotta slow down when it comes to this dirt track. But I mean, snow tracks versus dirt tracks is different. So, like I say, it's such a broad range of what you're starting and what you hunt and everything like that. And to answer the question earlier about how long you go on trash, to me, I don't break them off of trash until I've shown them the right thing, because I don't want them to lose their desire and their want to chase something until they know, hey, this is what I want. Till I've been able to get them at a tree, show them, congratulate them, love on them, and say, hey, this is what we're after. Then the next time, it's a slight correction, not a hard correction, but a slight correction, and just build from there. But I think it's to me, I've never wanted to like hard stop them before they've seen something that's good. And that's where I think trainers can be handy, but also trainers are very controversial. You got to be careful.
Right. I agree.
I go the whole other way on that. And I start pups the same way no matter the game, because I figure that a good dog is born. You can make a okay dog better, but great dogs are just born. It's either in them or it's not. If they're not going to trail something, then I don't want that dog anyways. And y'all know I don't worry about the speed. I'm all for it. I just build confidence. So when they overrun it, they'll go find it again. That's just how I like to hunt. But as far as trash goes, the first time they chase something, when they run something, if they catch anything, bay up a cow, a pig, I don't care. The first one, that's fine. But after they figured out that that's what we're doing, once they're chasing or trailing what I want them to trail, which is generally pretty quick, I would say, you can put them on a bear, they'll take it. If they don't take it, I probably don't want that dog, Once they get old enough, to figure it out, once they're dinking around. But once they start chasing stuff, I'm trash breaking right now, because deer is a no, elk is a no, cows are a no, because they already learned no. They learned no when they were little and they tried to chew my boot. You know what I mean? I don't reckon they can overthink it like that. If I can correct them off trash and that makes them not hunt, I don't want that dog anyways.
I'm gonna go way back to when they're a couple weeks old. Like I said, most of my dogs, 99% of my dogs are from my line or here. And I like that because I like to raise pups. I like to watch them. When they're 4 weeks old, I get a little drag. I don't necessarily do what I used to do when I first started. I had a frozen coon in my fridge. I was just trying to get them to trail. And I would go out and run little trails, and I would watch them dogs that would run that trail, or I'd watch them dogs that went out back and forth. And then once I have dogs, you kind of get lazy when you have older dogs, right? Like true. I haven't had to really, I still do I got a stuffed animal. I still squirt some sin on it. I still get them to play around.
I wouldn't say lazy, Chris, though, because honestly, that old dog can teach that pup
more than me
10 times in a month what you could ever teach it being you. Just because they're going to trust, they're going to watch you mow the dogs. They want to be a part of what they're doing. You're just the guy that gives them loves and until they get older.
Tells them they're good.
So an old dog is gold. And that's how I got to where I would rely on those solid trained dogs versus doing it myself.
And an old tattletale. Best puppy trainer in the world.
Yep.
I had a dog that wasn't the best at trailing or treeing, but damned if they weren't running something, he'd come back and walk with me. So if that dog came back and walked with me, I knew they weren't trailing or chasing something they weren't. But that also goes back to your trash training. I've heard, I think Brett told a story about a guy he's hunting with. He went out and his dog chased a deer, and then he came back, and I think he asked him, well, like, aren't you mad about that? He goes, I'm more mad he gave up the deer, quit trailing it.
Yeah, you trash if you catch it.
Yeah, but so he's off trailing, right? But no other dogs are with that 6-month-old pup. And sooner or later, he's going to turn around and say, where the hell did everybody go? And he's going to come back and maybe get out on that trail again and say, oh, shoot.
Well, and if not, and if you have to stop him, you know what? In the end, that's going to make a dog that won't quit a nasty, nasty track. If he's got the nose, he has drive. And to me, a dog that's hard to trash break in the end, once you get him there, is one of the better dogs you will have because he has so much drive. He's going to trail and push that track harder than a dog that will quit easier.
Right.
But to get to Derek's point real quick is I think I have more patience because I've had dogs that were very, very below mediocre. And then, everybody's like, well, if they're not by 1 year old, then get rid of them. But I've had fabulous dogs that waited till they were 3 and just turned in their switch. So, but I'm not out there doing what Brandon does. I'm basically pleasure.
Well, and that just depends on what kind of, if you have the space and the time to do it, then why, if you don't need to get rid of it and you kind of like the dog.
None of us have the money, Brandon. None of us have the money.
But I'm just saying, like, if you have the space for it and you can keep it and you have the time and you kind of like the dog, if it has a good personality, if it's not, the way I look at it is if it's not causing problems, it can stick around as pretty much as long as it wants until either it's about 3.5. And if it's a cool dog that I can get to somebody to go be a pet somewhere, then cool. Great.
So I want to throw this example out here. This is not mine. So when I went through all my stuff and moved to Arizona, I had a young pup that was probably maybe 5-6 months old that I had got from McLean and Hunter Meekum. And so I gave it back to McLean and said, hey, life happened, can't do this, do whatever. So McLean has had this pup, and as of June 4th, this pup is 2 now. So, and up until probably, I would say like February of this year, so that dog was well over 1.5, pushing 2. It had not done much. And it was from their breeding, from a cross that they had done multiple times that was a very, very solid cross that I have previous dogs from, 2 dogs from that cross previously that were early starters that are superstars in most guys' packs that are my main, some of my main dogs. And so I had asked him about it, and he's like, honestly, like, she doesn't cause problems, but when the dogs are trailing, she kind of just stays by me. She's seen a couple in a tree, really hasn't done much. And then right at about 1 year and 8 months, that dog went from nothing to what he would consider a well over a $5,000 dog like that.
Wow.
She just clicked, and she was cold trailing, like dirty cold trailing with some of their best dogs, really working the ground, really pushing tracks, not trashing. It was like she sat back for 1.5 years and absorbed everything she could. And then all of a sudden it was like, son of a bitch, this is what I'm made to do.
Did it do anything different? Did he like bench her for a while, or
no?
Hunter just with everybody all the time.
He just takes her and lets her be her thing. If she does something wrong, he'd call her back. But it was really, she was just exposed, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, this is what I'm made to do. I know what I'm supposed to do, and now I'm like, can I get her back? And he told me, he's like, bud, she's unreal. And so she just turned 2, and literally this spring lion season is like the first that she's really just turned it on. And he's like, she's unreal. And for a guy that's been hunting, Plains in his 50s, been hunting his entire life, for someone like that to say that and to see this situation, like I'm with Brandon, you got to give a dog sometimes, if they're not causing problems, give them till they're 2. 2 is kind of my limit. 3 is really, really hard, but it's just, you never know. Some pups kick it on at 6 months. Some pups kick it on at 18 months, and everything is different. Their exposure is different. It's such a variable game.
You hit on a point too. Like if that dog, if you have the patience for a dog, most of the dogs you have patience for take a while to go. Them sons of bitches you hate. And I have I've had 2 of them in my life. One of them's tattooed on me, and that's Andy. That dog, he was horrible. He was just an asshole, but he had heart. He trailed, he treed, he pushed my other dog Dirty to go. I have a dog now I did not want. I said, no. My wife was like, I think you should keep that dog. And I said, no, I don't think. This is another Andy where I want to put my gun to his head every time. And then he goes off and catches the bear. That's what Andy did. It's like, son of a bitch, guy, quit proving me wrong. Stop it. I want to get rid of you. But he was just a big dummy. But I dealt with him because he hunted. Now, Halado, same thing. And I didn't work with him 6 months. I take him out. The guy can't even run right. He's bouncing around because he don't know how to run. And I tell you what, she throws it in my face every day how she was right. And it's one of them dogs that I don't like how he barks. I don't like his hair. It's too long. I don't like his color. It's too blue. I don't like his feet. They're too small or too big. But I tell you what, those dogs you hate usually pick it up like that. And that's why you keep them. Even though they have a problem, they're hunting. And
I had Rebel. I had this dog, Rebel, that he earned his name. He came from the Indian reservation out in Washington, out in that like Omak country and stuff up there. And he was a running dog. And every year, every season, for the first about 2 weeks out, it was a come to Jesus moment with me and him. I was like, I'm done with this. I can't handle this son of a bitch anymore. He's off chasing moose, striking every damn thing in the woods, but then he'd go and catch me after I straightened him out after that first 2 weeks of hell. We'd have this hell week for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he'd just, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. And he'd go and catch me 10 bear in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, And then I brought him, but the problem with those running dogs down here, I brought him down here when I moved down, is they love everything. There's too much trash down here for, in my opinion,
jackrabbit, deer,
fox, squirrels,
fast.
Antelope. Yeah. Like just all these things that'll just take off. And I was fighting with him. And I was like, I was about at the end of my rope with him. And I said, you know what? Best thing for me to do is just get him back to that country that I know that he did real good in. And I found that I put him online and happened. A guy, got a hold of me from up there in the same country that I was in that North Idaho stuff, and got him. And I told him, I said, you're going to have a come to Jesus moment with him for 2 weeks, but after you square him away, he's going to be great. And he calls me, whatever, messing me about 2 weeks later. He said, you weren't kidding, right? He's like, we had to come to Jesus, but now he's on fire after he caught a badger and a couple other shit that week. Yeah. And, and then he squared him away and then he's all good. But he's just sometimes with those dogs, they just want to catch so bad. And they're trashy and they got to get lined out. And this dog, you could hit him on an 18 and he just scream through it and just keep going kind of deal.
Oh
and
yeah,
just like, man.
Well,
I had
one. They'll stop. They'll twitch, and then they keep going.
I got one like that now that the missus wanted, and I'm like, that joker ain't gonna be worth a hoot. And he's a bushwhacker now, but man, I had to bench him. I benched him for a month, and just left him alone, and that kind of squared him away because he's light him right up, and he just keep on. Couldn't get him off coyotes for forever because he could catch them, and then he wants to fight them, and I'm like, we ain't doing that. Come on now. Well, he kill one, I'll never break him.
Well, it's hard, because once them dogs figure out, like with trash, once they figure out they can catch it, like I used to have a problem with some dogs with elk. They would trash on them, and I'd get them corrected, whatever, good and good. And then I ran with a buddy, and his dogs trashed on an elk, and then they caught it. They baited up. And once them dogs figure out they can catch the trash, it's 10 times worse because they know they can catch it, and that's when it gets real hard.
Coyotes are probably the worst. And javelina, they'll learn a lesson on javelina because javelina don't mess the dog up.
The dog will break them, or javelina will break a dog off of himself.
They'll break them themselves. Yeah.
I think as far as starting pups and the timelines, I'm kind of with Dustin on that 2 years. It gets longer than that, and it's real hard to deal with. And I don't got space to have them sitting around. If they're not doing something, I can't feed the sucker. I ain't got room for them.
Well, and it's hard. Everybody's got different space, different financial
And
situations, different time situations, and so
I think
it's all so many variables, Derek, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I think a guy could get, especially a new guy, could get real. Have the wrong expectations, especially, if he's listening to every dog podcast he can get. He hears about 8-month-old pups lighting the world on fire in Ohio. You're not going to do that on bears in the Southwest or lions in the dirt. That's not going to be a thing. Like, I'm big on confidence building, and it's tough because everything we're chasing is great, big, and scary. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Like, you can get a 6-month-old pup to hammer raccoons. For sure, like pretty regular, because he's bigger than the coon is. That's not near as scary. They mostly will never hurt him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He can probably whoop that thing, but then
I'm kind of in that sense that it's like you can actually do a controlled start on a dog. In that
right? Way. Could you imagine if we had a cage bear?
God, that's why I listen on, like, you read all these old books and talk. You hear all these guys that they used to catch lions and catch bears, and that's how they could start a dog that way. And it's like, man, what a wild. I mean, I think those guys back in the day did more for selling and making money than they did starting dogs. But one opinion I have, honestly, is I think that the tracking collar and the GPS is a double-edged sword. Yes. It is something that it helps us keep our dogs safe. It can get them home at night. But I absolutely think that sometimes we think we know more than what we do. We screw things up more in that case, and we also don't let dogs learn on their own as much.
Well, so I'm gonna take some experience that I gained in Africa from that, because it was a very, very humbling experience. Because over there, yes, they do have access to the GPS collars. They have them, but they are not their first priority, if that makes sense. Like, and I'm guilty of it. I mean, especially on a bear race, I'm going to kick them dogs out after they rig. Once those 2 or 3 lead dogs start it, I'm going to dump the box. And what do? I'm going to sit in my truck. I'm going to watch that Alpha XL. I'm going to watch my handheld, whatever I've got, and I'm going to watch this race. Whereas over there, they didn't do that. The GPS was a last resort for them to figure out, oh, this dog's not where it should be. He's not showing up when I whistle. Or, when they had a race going, they weren't looking at it. They were listening. To me, I can hear the dogs, but at the same point, I'm watching it, seeing what dog's doing what. But yes, at the same point, the GPS can tattle on some dogs versus other things, but nothing beats being with those dogs, watching them, listening to them, and being a part of it. And that's what's hard with like a bear race or a snow race. It's so fast that you can't keep up with it.
Right.
But we've kind of with the GPS collars, we've kind of lost what our forefathers or what the old timers have done is, they just followed the sound. And when they lost the sound, they rode or hiked to where they last heard the dogs.
Right.
Or they would track the dogs by track,
and
following.
They had different types of dogs, some that were slower, some that they'd hold back to go find the dogs. Some of the dogs got smart enough that they would come back and find them and bring them back to the tree.
Definitely. And so, yes, do I think the GPS collars have made us more efficient on being able to bring dogs home? 1,000%. But I also think for some of us, and I can't say all of us because I don't know how everyone hunts, but it definitely has taken some of the guesswork on how these dogs work. But at the same point, you can sit and you can look at that GPS screen and you can see 8 dogs follow the track, and you can see a young dog or 2 peel off, and you're like, all right, do I correct them? Do I let them go? Like, you do know what some dogs are doing, but at the same point, I think it kind of hurts too.
Yeah.
Because you're not out there with them right away.
Right.
You're not leaving your truck hauling ass trying to keep up with these dogs to see what dogs are doing what. You're kind of relying on technology. So it's a great thing, but at the same point, I think it can kind of take away from it. And it's a fine line. And going over to Africa and seeing that really made me question a lot of how I do things and things I want to change. And it was so humbling, you know. Like, I watched a guy, a dog handler in Africa, control 15 dogs while he walked with nothing but a whistle. Just not like a straight whistle, just him doing a little whistle with his mouth saying, hey dogs, I'm here, I'm going this way, I want you to follow me. And you know, and once the dogs took a track, especially on like a jackal, yeah, he did check his GPS to see where they were going, what they were doing, but very rarely did they use a tone or a shock. It was I'm gonna let these dogs do their thing, I'm gonna let them show up, I'm just using it to know where I need to be to go in and pick up this dog, versus I'm going to tone this dog, bring it back, or I'm going to shock this dog, bring it back. They just didn't do that. And it, to me, it was like almost like a, hey, dumbass.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, you know, like
get back to the old stuff.
When the guys back in the day, when they used to go hunt, they didn't have vehicles really. Most of the time they were hunting on horseback. So their camp was within, 5 miles of where they were hunting. So if they didn't find a dog, that dog would find its way back to that camp. They weren't going, 30 miles home that night. So I understand why we do what we do, for sure.
Well, and that's how it was like in Africa, kind of, especially with the second place I went to that was more predator control. Yeah, that guy had a central location that he was hunting from 5 days a week that he walked out from. It wasn't like he was driving an hour and a half to go hunt. So with what you're saying, it's very, very different. We're not hunting.
The variables have changed.
Yeah, we're not hunting one ranch protecting my cows. I'm hunting national forest. I mean, sometimes in Utah, like when I was hunting bear, I'd drive 5 hours, hunt bear that next morning, and I'd turn around and come home 5 hours.
Right.
So the GPS and all that has enabled a huge thing there. But also, I think sometimes if we're not careful, it can take away from the true essence of running the dogs and what they're about and what they can be. And Africa was a huge...
You're getting a more organically better dog if you're not using your collars as much either.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. Africa was a huge gut check for me. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. I think that's how it was with the Cowboys, right? Warner, Glenn, all them guys, they didn't have nothing. They yelled. And I do the same thing. Like, I have the security of the GPS, but I hardly use it half the time. And I think that's the difference between bear hunting. Bear hunting, I have the GPS and I'm watching it. Lion hunting off my mule, I'm like, oh, they went that way. And I'll be like, what are they doing? And I'll like, oh, crap, I have a GPS. But I also, when I want to turn, I'm all, whoop. That's what I do. Most of my dogs follow me over that way.
I would say
without GPS, I couldn't even hunt the dogs I hunt. I'd have to have totally different dogs. I can't keep up with these things. Yeah. Horse, mule, foot, it ain't happening. They cast faster than I can run on a track, much less in the mountains. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to hunt these fast dogs. So I love it. But again, I'm not out there toning stuff unless it's, a bad situation or going somewhere they ain't supposed to be or what have you. But I do a lot of boot walking.
Yeah, and like you say, it's so many variables on how you hunt, how guys back east hunt, how guys in the south hunt, guys out here in the west hunt. Like, I hunt different than Chris hunts. I could hunt different than Brandon hunts. I mean, how Benny used to hunt back in the day. Benny, how you doing, bud? I missed you.
I said, "Are you coming on the night?" And he said, "You didn't send me a link. I thought you just had a full house." And I checked it and like, damn, I don't know what. So I sent it again.
What a jackass, huh?
I know.
Wow.
Anyways.
Leaving Danny out.
You know.
Hey,
I know. I was saving the best for last.
Yeah.
it's not my show, guys.
Oh, whatever. It's the Benny show. Christian provides it.
Yeah.
Hey, settle down.
Free casting with Benny.
Yeah,
That's
just
right.
saying though, so many people hunt different ways, and
Oh,
like I was saying, to me, Africa felt like I was going back in time to kind of like hound hunting's rawest, truest form, like Chris was saying, back to like the Warner Glen days, back to
Hound hunting 101.
Yeah, it was literally just a guy with his dogs going for a hike to take care of predators that were hurting the livestock and the ranchers. Whether it was their own livestock or not, it was their job to take care of predators that were hurting a way of life.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what hound hunting started for.
Yeah.
No one just back in the day, no one took these dogs and went out and said, "Hey, I just want to go chase this for fun." No, it was out of necessity. Nowadays, it's out of enjoyment, out of sport, and also can be necessity, but it's so much different than it was in a true raw form back then. And that's what I think I enjoyed so much about being over there. It was like, oh, we're gonna go back in time and do nothing but just go for a walk with these dogs to take care of a predator that is predating on livestock and hurting their way of life. And to me, I was just like, I'm home.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to the starting puppy side of it, as far as having the use of collars nowadays, depending on how you hunt, of course, because if you hunt country like, up in the north where they're, and you're mainly bear hunting, you're not necessarily hunting with your dogs. So this might not be as beneficial, but if you're doing a lot more hunting with your dogs on the dry ground stuff and everything like that, when you're using your collars, and I don't know if anybody's ever done any bird dog training or anything like that, but when you're using your collars, using a vocal, signifier as well as, the tone, like, hey, no, and toning at the same time, and working that into your early puppy training where they understand a vocal command, comes with a tone. And if you don't listen to the tone, next comes a shock, next comes a stimulation, whatever it may be. And so that is probably part of something as dry ground lion hunters, if we're going to use our collars and we want to use them at a young age where we don't have to use them necessarily as a training tool as you get older, but you can still use those vocal commands, incorporating that as as they're a puppy, saying no, using these vocal terms that they understand, that's not what you want to be doing. And then taking that into the field and not having to use your GPS and your tone and your shock as much, probably be a lot more helpful.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of new guys, they get into it and they reckon they're going to buy these dogs and just catch all this stuff, and they don't learn how to be dog men before they go try to hunt. And I think that's a bad problem.
Well, I mean, I might ruffle some big ass feathers there, but nowadays there are guys that hunt dogs and even some outfitters are people that are out to kill and to harvest, and then there are dog men, and there's a big difference in people that are in it truly for the hounds, for the enjoyment of it, and other people that just buy dogs, just do whatever to go harvest something, and then they're like, I accomplished it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Also, I wanna kick it back for a second, Benny. Since you came in a little bit late,
He was on his recliner.
well, I know, and I'm one that I truly I truly enjoy listening to, like
The old people.
I do. That's why when Benny calls me, I try hard to answer. If not, Benny, I call back. I try, don't I? But I truly enjoy a different perspective than this generation and even the generation younger than me. So Benny, if you got a pup from say back when you were running dogs, if you got a pup from a great line that you were excited about, what would be your process on starting that pup? This is what I want to know. I was really hoping you'd come on tonight just to hear this side of it.
I tried to get my pups at 5 weeks if I didn't raise them myself. I'm pretty blessed here. I've got 340 acres. My driveway's a mile of dirt, and there's nobody out here beyond us. So my pups got to run free. I would pin them up at night or chain them up, whatever, and turn them loose in the morning, and they got to do whatever they wanted to do. They live or die, they got to be a pup. It's interesting you guys talk about the shock collars because I want my pups to come to me, period. I don't give a rip. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care who they're playing with. When I say come here, I mean come here. And so at some point early on, not at 5 weeks, sure enough, but by the time they're 3 months old, I put them on a 30-foot lunge line. I have a nylon lunge line for a horse, and I put a shock collar on them, and I tell them to come here, and they start fighting and carrying on and throwing their little wall-eyed fits, and I tell them to come here, and I'd bump them with that shock, and I'd jerk them to me, and if they threw too much of a fit, I'd shock them off and on the whole time until they got to me, and the shocking stopped when they got to me. For me, handling your dogs was the most important thing. I don't want my dogs going off and acting retarded. Um, you can get into all kinds of situations. You can get into somebody's camp, and so you got a pack of 6 or 8 dogs with you, and everybody knows how to listen. And you got 2 knot-headed 6-month-old pups. Those 2 pups can ruin that interaction with those town clowns.
Yep.
That's just the end of the story, and you can't ever do anything to get it back.
Yep.
But if you come up there and you tell those dogs get over here, and even the pups come on, then you're onto something. Now you hunting over there in the desert, and you come up to a rattlesnake, you tell your pups to come on, and they come. You're not having to stop. I'll tell you what, if a rattlesnake starts buzzing, all the dogs are interested. And if a pup gets bit, any dog gets bit and yips, all the dogs are on the hook.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of reasons to have a handle on your pups. But for a while, my youngest son had beagles, and those beagles were the absolute best thing for my pups. Those beagles would hunt rabbits, and we had a lot of jackrabbits out here. So they would cold trail those jackrabbits until they jumped them, and then they'd have a little squalling race, and they couldn't keep up with them 5 jumps, and then the jackrabbit pulled some stunt and go lay down in the shade, and the dogs went back and they learned how to make a circle. They learned how to find that track, and then it was a cold track again, and they learned on their own that if they would hit it and find that track and trail it up, they'd be into a jumped face-to-face race again. And for a pup, man alive, let them be a pup. My dogs never came in the house. My dogs, they were dogs. They had a kennel and they had a house of their own. I would spend time out there with them, but everybody has different ideas, and that's fine. It's their dog and their ideas. But I never did just turn my dogs loose and hope everything went well. I was always horseback. After I got to a certain point in life, I started buying horses and then mules, and I stayed as close to my dogs as possible. I want to know what's going on. I want to know that they're not in a jam.
Yeah.
I want to know that they're not picking up some bad habits, like a toddler. Oh, they're not looking right now. Let's run around the corner and catch the house on fire. So not everybody has the ability to just leave their pups run loose. But if you do, there's absolutely nothing that works better for a pup than to be a pup.
Well, they just experience so much. They get to smell everything for the most part. I mean, around the house, they just get to roam free. They get to experience all those smells. They get to experience the brush. They get to just be themselves, other than a controlled environment. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like Benny said, not everybody has that ability. Some people can't. Those pups have to stay in kennels, and they only get the exposure that you give them. So if you don't live in an environment where you can let those pups roam free, get them out.
Well, that's a segue. That's a good segue.
Yeah, spend the time to take them out. Get them in the woods, even if they're 8 weeks old. Spend the day to go up in the mountains. Let them experience those different smells, that different terrain, as much as you can. So the first time you hunt them, they're not like, holy shit, this is a complete overload.
I'm gonna segue back. I'm gonna rewind.
Go for it.
Rewind is someone up here had mentioned, and I wrote it down, is taking them out alone.
That's what I was.
My dogs run loose. My dogs run loose. Like they run everywhere until my neighbors are like, "Hey, you got pups." But if you don't have that opportunity, then it goes back to time, right?
Yep.
It's been mentioned before, consistency. So if you can't let them run loose, and you have to get them out there 2-3 times a week by themselves, and that's when they're going to learn to come to you. Because when you're training a dog, even around here, I got pit bulls and my cur dog running around, or my Catahoula, all my coyote chasers. I can't train a pup with them sons of bitches around, because I have to chain them up or put them in the house in a kennel or whatever. So getting them out alone is probably, even if they're running around, to load them up in a truck by themselves, get them out, no distraction, get them out there and it's so amazing to watch a dog out in the hills. Like just take them out to a stream or just in the woods or the desert and just walk with them.
Yep.
And then you'll learn if that dog's going to be a good dog. If that dog just running around kind of dumb, he's a puppy. But even a puppy will start smelling both sides of a rock. That's the greatest thing, is when they smell one side of a leaf and the other, and you're like, he's looking for something. He don't know what he's looking for, but he's got it.
I think it's a huge thing that I haven't seen so much out here. Everybody does it back east, and I thought maybe it's just not a thing. But singling a dog out, like I do that for sure. Like we're probably not going to catch that first bear they jump all by themselves, but they did it all by themselves, and I think they feel like big shit when they do. Oh, it's a confidence booster. You know what I mean? That way, next time they won't rely on old whoever or their buddy or what have you. But I think that does get me in some situations with split races and dogs not wanting to pack in real good. I got one that wants, that blue one right there. She wants to be by herself a whole lot. Once upon a time, I would love that, but it's kind of
I love
sometimes.
it. Well, I love a dog that does that.
Independent dogs versus a pack dog that will pack well. Not even just a dog that is one that you pack to others, but an independent dog versus dogs that will honor and really want to be with other dogs is a whole different story. And that's why I think, starting pups, anybody and everybody has their own formula. Yeah. But it also boils down to what works for you, the game you hunt, and the area you hunt, and the line that you hunt, whether you're just bringing shit from here, or there, or you've been consistently hunting this line of dogs. Like Chris hunts his own stuff, plain and simple, very rarely brings in something different. So he has his formula of what works for his line of dogs, whereas someone else could be buying a dog from back east. The next dog he buys is from Oregon. The next dog he buys is from Montana. So everything is going to start different. So his formula is going to have to change somewhat for each pup, because they come from a different line. Some lines start earlier, some lines are late bloomers, and it all depends on your patience, I think, and things like that. So I don't think there's a 100% guaranteed formula for every pup.
For sure.
because
some people like a cup and a half of sugar in their Kool-Aid. Some people like 3/4 of a cup in their Kool-Aid, right?
Know, and then there's Benny that likes a shot of whiskey in his Kool-Aid. Just say
green Kool-Aid. He drinks that green Kool-Aid.
just say it. We all expect.
Everybody has a different taste. Yeah,
but Dustin,
they do.
Dustin's problem is you're trying to be a houndsman.
I am.
You cannot be a houndsman and act like a bunch of these knuckleheads act. They have a belief that every dog should be a maid dog or next door to the maid dog at 6 months old or 5 months old. Well, hell, I didn't even take my pups with me hunting till they were 3 months old, and that's pretty small. And to go back to Tim's question about leaving them out overnight, you take those little pups with you, you're gonna lose them. They're not gonna pay attention, and you're gonna end up not paying attention, and it only takes one bush, and all of a sudden you don't have a dog anymore. So what do? Do you spend the rest of the day looking for them, or do you go on and think, well, this is an education? And 20 years ago, I was paying $1,000 for a 5-week-old pup for the ones that I bought, and everybody says, well, that's too damn much money. Well, I didn't have just regular dogs either. But you think about just pitching $1,000 bill out there in the wind and come back tomorrow and see if you can find it again. But to answer your question, Tim, I did it all the time. I mean, and when I was in the Guadalupe Mountains down here in the foothills where there's oil field traffic, I was a nervous wreck because people steal dogs all the time. Well, he's not taking care of his dog. Look at this little bitty pup out here. Even though I had my name on it and everything else, sometimes they'd call me and say, hey, I got your dog. And I'd have to make another an hour and a half, 2-hour trip back to the mountain to go get my dog before somebody changed their mind. But if you're going to do this enough and hard enough, you're going to set yourself up to have some mishaps. That's all there is. Look at when Madison, her dog got ran over. That's a mishap. They didn't set the deal up for her to get her dog run over. But you have to figure out, are you going to go out there and risk a $20,000 lion dog? Can you take that kind of risk? Or do you want to sit at the house and wish the hell you had something to do?
I wanted to piggyback also on that, taking them out alone real quick, is you have them out alone, and my dogs, they all know their name individually. And I think if you take a dog out alone and call their name all the time, they'll know it. But I never use their names when I'm on a mule. I say, hey, and they all look at me. And I said, let's go this way. Or whoop, you know what I mean? So, but I hardly lose it. And they know if I use their names, they're probably in trouble. Kind of like when your mom, if your name's Mike, she's like Michael or Chris, and they're like Christopher. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, crap. Or they use that middle name on you, and you're like, yep. I think taking them out alone, we talk about recall, and if you're out there and you're calling their name and you're just giving them a little tone, I very, very seldom shock my dogs anymore, ever, hardly ever, unless they hit that res and I tone them and they don't want to turn back. And it's kind of like a kid. You're like, this is going to hurt you more than me when your dad takes that belt to you. And, you're like, yeah, you're a liar until you grow up and have kids. You're like, oh, shit, this is going to hurt me more than you. So I think the alone time is pretty important, and it creates the manners. I just wanted, before we got on the.
Oh, definitely.
When they get older.
100%.
But you're pushing the pack mentality. And everybody that doesn't push the pack mentality. I mean, it's okay to have a dog that'll do it all by itself, and it's okay to have every dog that'll do it all by yourself if that's what you want. But outside of that, there's still a pack. And if you're going to be the alpha of that pack, you look at a pack of dogs anywhere, in any circumstances, and that alpha barks or makes a sound, and everybody stops and looks. And if you're not the alpha at your pack, no matter what that looks like, you're screwed.
Yes, sir.
That's a fact.
It's always about the betterment of the pack at the end of the day. You always
That's exactly
do
right.
the heart, and sometimes it's going to rip your heart out of your chest, but you got to do what's better for the pack, no matter what.
Yep.
That's something I think every houndsman, when they become a true houndsman, will really learn, is that the betterment of the pack is the most important thing at all time. You might have a dog that might be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he's just a fighting son of a gun, and you can't break him of it, and he's just got to go.
Amen.
That's a tough
Yes, sir.
decision too.
Amen.
You can't throw him in the box and have to worry about him on a 4-hour, 6-hour, 3-day trip, whatever it is, even a 10-minute trip, and there's probably special exceptions. I had Dirty and his brother Andy get in one of the worst dog fights I ever had at the hound trials. And it was literally, I walked by him. One was tied to my tire and one was on a leash. And I knocked the dog out. I literally knocked the dog out and had to throw him all because of a damn jipping heat. Yep. Those dogs, that was the only time in 10, 11 years that those dogs have ever fought. Yep. And obviously, I'm not going to get rid of them for that. Now, and they were like, I ended up just tying one up all weekend and separating them. I didn't put them in the box together. When I went home, I chained them sons of bitches to the rail. They had to sit there, and they knew they was in trouble anyways. But if they would have happened again with no cause, one of them, it would have probably been Andy that left. Like I said, he was the dog I was looking for an excuse.
Well, you got to think too, if that's happening in camp or at home or whatever, the problem is when you have no control, which is at a tree.
Yep.
When you're not there.
And that's like, that is one thing myself I have very, very much taken care of, will not tolerate. I do not tolerate a growly or aggressive dog. And one is for that reason, but two, and I'm different than others, is my kids handle these dogs. My kids feed these dogs. My kids are with me when I hunt. And so, like, a guy that's very different, and I'm not like poking at anything here, but like Brandon doesn't have kids, is not hunting with kids. Like, when Brandon hunts his dogs, it's him, it's buddies, it's whatever. When I'm hunting, it's my kids are around, so I will tolerate a hell of a lot less when it comes to that than someone else. And it's not a fault. It's just, to me, that is something I will not put up with. I will not tolerate, because I have different things that come into aspect versus someone else. And I'm not saying that Brandon probably wouldn't tolerate that either if he had kids that were feeding his dogs, things like that. It's just, he's in a different stage than I am. And
it's just like we talked about, different variables, it's like how you hunt,
exactly
from what you do.
And to me, if a dog growls when someone feeds it, if a dog picks a fight for no reason around home, I'm done with it.
Yep.
Like if I think it's a good dog, I will sell it, and I will be straight up honest saying this dog needs to be solo hunted or you can't have it. Yeah. And if I think it's to a certain point, I will take care of the problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like having a bad horse in a pasture or a bad mule in a pasture.
Yes.
It changes the entire environment. Every other mule and every other horse their entire attitude is different. You get rid of that bad mule or that bad horse, and all of a sudden everybody's relaxed. Everybody's calm. There's no problems around. It's just like getting rid of a dog that is growly and fights. All of a sudden nobody else is fighting anymore.
Yep.
Like, it changes your whole life.
If you guys are just, I don't know how often it happens, but veterinarians make attitude adjustments every single day on male dogs.
I agree, Benny. And a lot of dogs, it completely takes care of the problem, but there's very select few that it won't. And in the end there, that's when I will take care of the problem.
Let me do something I've never done on this show and say Bone Pile is right. Now, I think Bone Pile.
I'm done.
I think Bone Pile Listen, I think Bone Pile has gotten paid, and he's only 6 deep right now. But he's 100% right. Yeah. If you don't know your dog, it's your fault. And I'm going to tell you, when Dirty barks at 2 a.m, I know there's a bitch in heat somewhere or coming in. When if you know your dogs, now everybody says the dog's a tool, right? There's 2 different kind of carpenters. There's a carpenter that uses a tool, don't do nothing with it but burn it out, and then go buy another one. Okay, that's not your hound and your dog, man. Now there's those carpenters that have let's say a skill saw chop saw that blows it out every day, cleans it, puts it back. That's the same with taking care of a dog and knowing your dog. That's what makes, I believe, a dog man, a houndsman, a true person who is interested in how a dog's work. And if you, like me, I know if I wake up and Dirty's barking, the stupid bark at 2 a.m, I have to go check all my gyps in the morning and see who's coming in.
Yeah.
And that's knowing your dog, right? I knew those dogs didn't fight like that. So I didn't just get rid of my skill saw and go buy another one because it got dull. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
I agree.
Yes, Bone Pile, you were right. You'll never probably hear me say that again.
Don't push your luck.
The devil just bought a parka. Okay.
I even texted Chris earlier. I said, man, Bone Pile's on one tonight, but I'm with him. Like, I agree 100%. Yep. If you don't know your dog, that is 100% your fault because you haven't spent the time, you haven't done your due diligence, and you haven't really just learned and went and been a part of that dog and everything. I agree.
Yep. And I think that's probably one of the number one important things you can do is learn your dog. And that's why I like to raise my dog. I love puppies. I love watching my dog grow and exceed just like a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like Brandon was saying last time he was on, is even though he bought like a nice $high dog, even then he had to learn that dog and that dog had to learn him. Because you know what? Every one of us, even a dog, we're all going to push our luck in a situation. You know, I'm going to push my luck with Benny until Benny's like, hey, you little son of a bitch. No.
Lose my number. Lose my number. I've been told that. Lose my number.
You know, like I'm going to push my luck just the same as a new dog's going to push their luck. Because you know what? Chris gave me this credibility with Benny, and Benny was like, all right, this guy's okay. And then Benny watches me and is like, I
lie a lot.
Benny's going to sit back and he's going to watch. He's like, all right, this son of a bitch does this. I'm going to call him out. I'm going to rein him in. Same with like a dog, you know. You're going to give this dog that you just bought that's a nice dog that came from a reputable person. You're going to give it so much leeway. But in the end, you're going to be like, all right, I got to call this dog out because that dog's going to push its limit and say, you know, I'm going to trash just a little bit for this new guy because he's not the guy I've spent 8 years of my life with. He's not the guy I've spent 6 years of my life with.
Oh, yeah.
So they're going to push it. And then you call them out, you correct them, and then they're like, oh, all right, I know better. I'm good. I'm not going to do that again. They're gonna go back to the dog they were before you bought them. But a new person, a new environment, a new pack, they have to find their place. They're gonna push their limits until they know their limits. People are the same way.
Yes, sir.
And so it's just an interesting dynamic, you know. Chris and I get along great. Brandon and I get along great. Derek and I get along great. Benny and I get along great. Benny will tell me straight up how it is. You know, I don't know if I have that relationship with Brandon yet, or Chris yet, or Derek yet. You know, Benny's just I don't give a shit. I'm gonna tell you what you think. Yeah, but
I just believe in the bottom line.
Yeah, and I'm not saying everyone doesn't, but people got to find their place. Dogs got to find their place. And it's just an awesome dynamic. And I love watching it with dogs. I love being a part of it. I love bringing a new pup into a pack, watching them find their place. Just that much is just, to me, that's what can make a dog man versus a hunter.
Didn't Jared just go through that?
He did with T-Bone. You're exactly right.
And for a year, how old is that dog? Year and a
I
half?
think he's
Just
2.
about 2. Yep.
She's 2 now.
Yep.
That's a lot of money for a 2-year-old dog.
You're damn right.
I mean, in today's world, that's a lot of money, period. But that's a lot of money for a 2-year-old dog, and that's putting a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation on a 2-year-old dog. And Jared jumped.
And that's, and I told Jared, I said, and Jared, I would not spend money on a dog, but Jared, that's what he's doing, right?
Well, and everybody's
that's
different.
His job.
Yeah. Everybody's different. And even Jared, I talked to him the other day, and I wish he was on here to like corroborate it. But Jared was like, you know what? All my good dogs weren't trailing what the dog he bought, which is T-Bone. Well, yeah, that's his name.
You talking about his antelope situation?
I think so. So
he's not here. Let's just spill it.
He was like, T-Bone was trailing, and none of my older dogs were. So I called him out. He's like, I wanted to trust him because of where he came from and his experience. But in the end, that dog was testing his limits with Jared, and Jared had to call him out and correct him. So no matter what,
I have to give Jared credit because he's the one who kind of made me realize that I needed to call this dog that I got out, because it was
Lacey.
I had to call Lacey's bullshit. I had to call her card a little bit because she was taking advantage of me. And he called it one day. He goes, I think she's taking advantage of you. And I didn't want to hear it at the time.
It's hard.
It is. After you spend some money on a dog and you got
I think it's somebody, like a car, right?
That's what good friends are for, At the end of the day, that's a good friend.
Well, it's like a car. If you go buy a used car and you spend a lot of money on it, you don't expect it to. You have to change the water pump in a day.
Really, we want to go down this road after my.
I forgot.
We want to go down this road.
I forgot. Dustin had a little episode the last couple of days. I just PTSD'd him, man. Yeah. Just tell the story. Everybody's gonna ask. Just tell the story.
We'll explain. So my wife's car, she had a Hyundai Sonata hybrid that gets great gas mileage, but over the last year it's kind of been nickel and diamond just a little. So last Friday, the Friday from now, it threw a code. It was kind of like shaken as we started to drive it, which made me think, all right, it's misfiring in a cylinder, which is making the engine not quite work right. So I took it into the dealership. They kept it over the weekend. On Monday, they called, said, hey, it was misfiring on this cylinder. We replaced the spark plugs in the ignition coil. It's good to go. So I picked it up Monday night, knowing that I had to go up to a wedding for someone that I consider family that's not blood, go up to a wedding in Utah on Tuesday afternoon. So I got in the car, instead of driving my truck, because I wanted to save a little money on gas. Stupid me. Anyways, got in her car, got 45 minutes from home up to Sunset Point, going up I-17, or I think it's I-10. I can't remember. Whatever
17.
it is. 17.
17.
Yeah.
Benny's right. Hit up, got to almost to Sunset Point. This thing lit up like a Christmas tree. Just lights everywhere on the dash. Stopped, put me in limp mode. I couldn't even move. I was pissed. Didn't make it to someone that I consider family's wedding because of this car. So called the tow truck, waited an hour. Tow truck came and got me, picked me up. We went back to the dealership. I looked at them and said, you fix this damn problem. It's your fault. I walked over to the Toyota dealership next door because Toyotas have always been good to me. I said, I want this SUV for my wife. This car is over here. You trade it in. I am done with this shit. I was so mad. About 3:00 yesterday afternoon, I walked out with a new SUV. They paid me for a car that was broken down at the next dealership. I was so mad. But
they saw the angry leprechaun there. Huh?
Oh, they did. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, this beard's red. You should have seen the top of my head with no hat on.
I ain't never seen Dustin blow his top, but I bet you imagine right then and there that'd be a good time.
Oh, I was because it was a friend that to me was more than family. He wasn't blood, but it is someone that had been through life with me, that had helped me through some shit times. And I couldn't make it because of that, and I lost it. I did. So she's got a great SUV that will take care of her. We're good. Everything worked out other than that, and
there's nothing that causes a divorce more than 110 degree on the side of a freeway, buddy.
I tell you what, dude, I was sweating. It was 8:00 in the morning. That car was hot. I couldn't turn it on. I couldn't move. Oh, I was mad. I was mad. If I would have called Benny would have heard some words he never heard me say. So,
I'd say, what the hell's this got to do with dogs?
You're right.
Hey, it got brought up. That was my fault. That's my fault. So
that's what I would have told him when he called me on the side of the road.
Yeah. Don't call it.
He would have said, "This don't have nothing to do with dogs, dipshit. Call me later."
If you'd look over there to the west off of Sunset Point, you'd see some really beautiful Bradshaw Mountain.
Oh, I did. I saw it, but I had to sit there on the freeway and listen to the cars pass as I had to sweat my ass off in a car.
Man, that's a rough deal.
If you're like any probably other houndsman in the world, that's the worst sound you want to hear. It's a freeway.
Well, and that's the thing is when I called my buddy, he's like, "Oh, I figured you just bring your truck." Yeah, my Toyota with 210,000 miles on it would have got my ass there, but this freaking foreign piece of shit with
what you did? You cost you more money and sitting there in a tow truck than it did fuel, because I'm the same way. I take that Magnum, 35 miles a gallon, and I have a number 2 piston missing because the chain, the timing thing broke, smacked the valve. It's just on low compression. It has a bad idle, but 80 miles an hour it runs just fine.
Yeah.
Same thing. I take Corolla.
That's me. I traded 50 miles to the gallon on that hybrid.
But Benny, it's not a Hyundai.
No. That's the thing. It was a Hyundai. I traded 50 miles a gallon for that hybrid, whereas my truck would have got me there at 15 miles a gallon, and I never would have had a problem. But I was trying to save that almighty dollar.
Well, shit, let's recap. We started from being born. We got them to call their name. We've got them out by themselves. Now we're dropping them with the older dogs. That's what we need to do. Drop them with you. What's up, Benny? You got to go?
Yeah. My wife's sick, all this pain meds and stuff. So
okay.
You guys have a good evening.
You got up quick. I'll talk to you later, Benny.
All right.
The one thing I want to know is when you have a puppy and you got it going, what's the point where you go in your head, this dog's going to make it? What do you see from what age? Because, I've had dogs when they're, 8 weeks old and you play around with them and you do little drag things and you're like, wow, that dog's amazing. And then, you go 6 months, 8 months down the road and all of a sudden that dog's kind of not really doing a damn thing. And you expected a lot more out of them. At what point do you decide this dog's a part of my pack? Like, what is it? Whether it's, it might not be age, obviously, but what is it at the point where you decide that I'm going to invest more time and energy into this dog than I am, this other one, let's say. And then I think the easiest way to do that is when you keep a litter of puppies, you keep 5, 6, something yourself, and you see the progression between dogs. But is there something that indicates to you when you see a dog really do a certain type of thing that you go, you know what, that dog's going to make it. I'm going to keep that dog.
I'm going to analogy it as building a house, right? If you're building a house, you don't have one person doing everything. And if you did, it would take a long time to do it, right? So I don't necessarily say every dog has to trail, tree, and behave. Trail and tree. When you're on it, like trail and tree, that's all you care about is trail and treeing, right?
Okay.
So,
but Chris, in that aspect, some dogs are a hell of a lot better trail dogs.
That's where I'm going.
Better. Yeah. All right. I'll let you finish then.
Now
If
you
that's
have
where
a
you're
pack,
going.
right?
Yep.
You have a pack. You're not going to have the plumber do your electrical. So if you have a dog that's
some people
phenomenal, that's just true. So
I was a plumber for 13 years. I know.
Yep. So you're not going to, like in my dogs, I think you have a checklist, right? So when they're growing up and you're dropping them with dogs, look, there's Jared. I forgot to add Jared.
There he is.
Yeah. So,
wait. Let me say. Way to bring in the trash, bud.
It's a segue to trashy dogs.
Dude, I picked on him on social media earlier, and he's still butthurt.
Yep. So I think you have a checklist, right? If I have a dog that runs with the pack, I'm like, that's good. I like that. But I also like a dog that comes back to the pack. I like a dog that circles out a couple 100 yards and comes back. But I also like a dog that stays in front of me. So if I have a dog that just stays in front of me looking, I'm good because I usually have a dog that I have my plumber that's not doing my electrical.
I gotta jump off here real quick.
God damn.
I know. Fucking work's fucking fun. But sorry for swearing.
All right.
All right.
I will say one thing about a dog. My best puppies I've ever started, I never had to force them to do anything or show them how to do it.
And I'm gonna say one more thing. That's a 2-pump chump. Kick him out.
Yep.
That's all I'm gonna say. My very best ones, I never had to force them out to do nothing. So, but all right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Right.
I agree. Yep.
And there's nothing better than a dog you don't have to train.
Right.
But I like a variety of dogs in my pack. If the dog kind of trails and he trees like a maniac, man, I love that too, because some dogs love the trail and they're like, he's up there. I don't need to touch him.
Well, and it's hard because you get some of those early starters.
Oh, that are great.
Well, you get an early starter and you have a late bloomer. And sometimes those early starters will hit it, are just phenomenal. And at about 3 years old, they cap. Whereas, and I'm not saying this is every experience because I've had some different, sometimes those early starters, they never cap all the way till they're 10 years old. They continually get better. But sometimes you get those early starters that at 3 years old, they cap. And then you'll get that late bloomer, like I was explaining about that pup earlier, that at 2, they hit. And then after 2, they continually get better and they pass that early starter. They become the dog that you rely on, the check dog, the dog that is just like
that goes back to what you were saying though. Patience, room, time, like what is it going to work for you?
Yeah. And that's the thing is sometimes, those late bloomers are the dog that is the dog of a lifetime.
Yep.
Whereas and I get stuck on the early starters. I do because I'm like, at 8 months old, this dog made his first lion race, and he's never missed one since. But like I say, it's so individual. But God,
what do you do for a dog that's more trail minded to work on its tree? So like last week, or like caught a bobcat, whatever
Yeah, you sent me the video.
Yeah, and I had 2 dogs there treeing well, and they're older dogs, so they should be. And I had 3 younger dogs there, and they were actually the ones that put it up the tree. They saw it, they were on it, they were hot on it. But once they got to the tree, they did nothing. I was doing my best to show them, to get them going. And I mean, obviously, it's a bobcat at 85 degrees, so it's different.
It's hard.
And I'm picking them up and I'm looking. And I know they're looking at it, and they're just like, whatever, But is that repetition? Is it, what is it? What's the key? Because I know I'm more than the first guy to run into it, where you have a dog that's trail minded, like they trail hard, they go hard. And as soon as they hit the tree, they're like, I'm done. My job's done.
So my question is did they leave the tree?
No. No, they didn't leave the tree. No, they just circled around it. A bunch.
No correction is needed. They'll either pick it up with time or it's just not something that's in them. Plain and simple. If you have a trail-minded dog that hits the tree and after 10 minutes decides to leave and try and hunt or backtrack, that is a correction that is needed, in my opinion. Like I say, I'm not the all.
And this is also,
I don't know everything.
What are we talking about mainly right now? We're lying. We're kind of talking lying. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to bear and you're going to coon,
because of where we are. It's where we are, and it's what we're doing, and it's and like, but even hunting bear in Arizona is different than hunting bear in most other states.
West Virginia,
that's a fact.
Absolutely. But even
I guarantee you,
like my first 4 bears that I caught here, I 1000% thought that they were lions. My dogs were nose down, cold trail, and pecking through a canyon, on these boulders. And I'm like, they're on a lion. They're 100% a lion. And boom, we catch. And I'm like, oh shit, it's a bear. And I think it just, that's very dependent on where you're at.
But also, and I'm not saying this happened, but unless you're with those dogs step for step, they could be cold trail lion, hit a hot bear. We're good. Because that
happens to me a lot.
Well, and this goes to, like, there's a lot of people out there that will just electrocute the hell out of them chasing a bear. But me personally, and I can attest to when they have their nose down. So when I leave the desert in the winter and I come up here in August, you have to have 2 packs of dogs if you want to do it right. I believe you can use both, but when I'm down there, I get here, they try to cold trail. Their nose is down. I'm like, no, guys, come on, bear, put your head up. When I'm done up here for the fall, and I get back down in the winter, they're trying to hold their head up, and it takes acclimation to put their head back down.
And so
that's a problem that I have is my dogs run everything. They're drifting everything. We're either going to catch it or we're not, and we're going to do it real fast. No, my dog, I don't trash. That's not fair. I don't trash. I wouldn't
just saying though, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And this comes from my experience over, I think I'm close to 20 years. And not that all 20 years were great years. But
but you've also paralleled people that's been doing it longer than that.
So some lines of dogs do not transition well from a slow cold trail to the next month. Guess what? We're hot. We're picking our nose up. We're running a hot bear.
Yeah.
2-3 months later, they've got to stop. They've got to culture. So some lines of dogs transition great, some don't, and that's all in what works for you,
right?
What you can tolerate.
Yeah, because to me, I want a dog, and I've hunted with dogs that I have 100% watched do this. That one day we will rig a bear, and it is balls to the wall. They catch that sucker like from the truck. It's a hot track, head in the air, drifting the track. They catch it. The next day, we have a client, and you know what? It's a 12-hour-old dirt track. You drop that dog, and he knows better than to try and drift it. He will drop his nose, and he will go track to track to track until he can drift it and go. And that's a special dog in itself. But unique. It's also people that have created a line that work like that. Yeah. And so if that's what you're after, you need to do your research for that. And if you're not after that, if you're after just something different, then you work for you. Anyone that is buying a pup or buying a dog needs to do their research on their style, on what they do, on what those dogs do. And if you don't, you shoot yourself in the foot.
And that's why I hunt what I hunt, because I spent, 2 years trying to talk to people, and I don't have a decade to earn my stripes so this guy will sell me a dog. I'm not doing that. I'll just hunt what I know, and if I catch 2 lions a year like last year, that's okay. I had a good time with my dogs. I'd rather only be able to catch the hot ones than wait around for 6-8 years making buddies with everybody in the country to try to buy a dog. So
and
that's
like I say,
that's why I did what I did, And,
which is like you're different than me. You know, you want to catch the hot ones, you want to catch the fast ones, you want your dog going balls to the wall. Whereas me,
well, that's just all I could get. It's all I know. So these guys out here nobody would sell me nothing. I spent a year and a half, 2 years. They don't know me. They won't sell to me. So I'm like, okay, I'll go right back where I know where I can get a dog that'll catch game, and that's what we do, you know.
And so, I understand that.
I promise it's frustrating when they won't take a track.
Yeah,
it is for sure. They just look at me like I'm stupid. I'm not chasing that.
But the hard part, and I'm not calling you out. I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying your education is different, but being able to judge the age of a track and everything like that is different too. But like if my dogs won't buckle down and cold trail a night old dirt track, that's not a dog that is gonna make it for me.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it's not hard to get into those dogs, Derek, because I understand that world. I have been blessed and have great friends in that world, and I understand it. But at the same point, you know, you work your way in slowly. You know, I've been in it 20 years to get to where I'm at, not 2 years. And I'm not being rude. I get it. I get it.
I understand the thing. I'm just not willing to trade the next 7-8 years of my life to make friends when I can just go home and get dogs, come back, and I'll still catch stuff, have a good time, get to hunt dogs.
And I get that. Like I say,
it all depends on your style.
Everybody has like Brandon says, different style, different expectations, different this, different that, and you never know who you're going to meet along the way that can completely change your entire life. You know, like me, I met someone, God, I gotta think of how long ago that was. I met someone 15 years ago. You know, I was in the hound world, I'd say 5-6 years, maybe even hair longer. And I met someone, became friends, just changed my world. Yep. You know, you could meet someone next month, you know, in August when it opens back up. You could meet someone, hunt together, become friends, will rock your world in the hound world and the way it goes. Everyone just has to be open to new connections, new this, new that. And not everyone is. And that's the hard part. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. That's why I run small pack of dogs too, because at any point I might make a buddy and maybe somebody will sell me something that's better in this country. And then I can change it up a little bit. But if I have 15 of these speed monsters, what am I going to do? You know, that's why I got 3 or 4 and that's it. You know?
And everybody's different. You know, you might meet one guy that's like, hey, you know, just talking bear hunting, just because it's easier. I have this experience with it. Is you might run into one guy that, hey, I got a bear going. I need you to go somewhere else because I don't want your dogs in with mine. Whereas if you run into me, I'm going to ask you 2 questions before I let you turn your dogs loose. I'm going to say, hey, do you got anybody that picks a fight? No. Do you have any young dogs? Because what I'm going to say is if you have young dogs, kick them in now. And if they pick a fight, you are not allowed to turn that dog loose, because if I get to that tree and your dog's picking a fight, I'm going to end something that you are not going to like. Yeah. Plain and simple. And I will give you that preface before anything, but I am 100% going to try and help you.
I think time on the mountain helps a lot with and just talking to I talk to everybody I drive by.
That's what I
don't care if it's you know, just somebody trail hiking or out with their dog or they're camping. You never know. That person might be like, I was hiking with my dog and we saw a lion up that trail when we were coming back, and it was crazy, you know, or whatever. Or you run into a cowboy, like some of the people I've met out there, you run into them and you get to talking, and then all of a sudden you got their number, and then all of a sudden they're calling you because they just had a lion that's hanging around their calves and they want you to come out and give it a go. And you know what? You may catch it, you may not, but you know what? At the end of the day, talking to every single person on the mountain is only going to increase your chances of having a greater opportunity in your life.
Yeah. And you're not wrong. The problem is my kids hate that shit about me.
Oh, because you sit there for an hour, right?
Yeah.
My wife, My wife knows if I put that truck in park on the side of the road, or if I see someone in Walmart, she walks away because and then I'll get a text. Done. Yep. And this has happened not just hound hunting. I was hunting 6A elk 1999, and I swear to God, this guy was drunk at 5 a.m. riding his horse around, cowboy. And he said, "Go over here. There's 1,000 elk over there." And you're like, "Oh, okay." I bet. And I go over there. I sit up on that ridge. It's Cedar Flats out there, and I start glassing. I'm on, man, this guy. And then I see an elk.
Yep.
And then I see another elk. This valley is full of elk. Same with bear.
I mean,
same with bear.
I do the same thing, you know. I talk to everybody. Like you just yell at some guy with a dog box at a red light one day, and next thing you know, you're on a YouTube live.
But the hard part is, and you have to take this with a grain of salt, is 99% of houndsmen are full of shit.
Oh yeah.
yeah. Well, if you're asking a houndsman where they are, and they say over there, you go over there. I tell you that.
I ran a bear over here. Go hike, you know. But I've done that. I'll tell people like, hey, I caught a bear right here. If you go hike this ridge, you're gonna get it going. Yeah. Like I try not to be that, but at the same point, if you ask someone, hey, did you catch something today? Yeah, you're damn right. I caught something today when I did nothing but drive around. like it's hard, you know, because houndsmen can be the greatest people on earth, and I will attest to that with my business. There is no one I have found that supports each other and supports community like houndsmen. If someone has a problem, someone has a tragedy, something, they come together like you cannot believe. But at the same point, it's
look
they're
at
like,
the guy.
I'm not gonna help that guy. I'm not gonna help this guy. Like it's hard.
Well, look on the internet right now. The guy's in the hospital. They're getting rid of a bear hunt, and I've seen that thing shared. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen it. I've seen that shared 100 times to where they're trying to get money to get this kid, you know.
Yeah, that's a Chase Palmer out of Utah. Yeah. His brother got in an accident. His brother's not a houndsman.
Got any extra funds that they feel like they might want to donate? Go ahead, look up Chase Palmer's Instagram and go.
And I've never met Chase. I know people that know him. I've hunted with people that have sold Chase dogs. Like, never met him, but I sent stuff. You know, because it's that community.
Well, that's what we're here for, each other, because we are a small minority in the entire nation, and when if they call upon us, it's time to step up.
And just like what Bonepile posted, you know, Chris struggles with the comments. I see him all, but like Bonepile, you know,
I think I just posted it.
His best died in a tragic accident. You know, like if there's anything we can do, let us know. Yeah, like we all will try and help.
Yeah, if there's a GoFundMe, send it to me. I post it.
Yeah, like houndsmen at the same point. Like not to sound like horrible, but some guys don't want the next guy to catch as much as them, and some guys do. Like me, I want Derek to be just as good as me. I want Brandon to be just as good as me. If I can help him, I will. I mean, Jared has texted me asking questions, and I answer his questions, but I also give him a hard time. You know, back when I made fun of him being a coyote chaser, like I picked on him, but I'm not this amazing know everything person. I just have some experience a little bit compared to some people. You know,
well, if someone learn from somebody what to do, or you learn from somebody what not to do. The bad things actually count too.
Yes, you know.
Well, we have so many different walks of life, so many different dogs, so many different people that even somebody getting into hounds, if they've had their dogs for a year, it doesn't mean you can't learn something from them. Oh, you might learn something that you've seen, that you've been doing. You're like, holy crap, that's crazy. I can't believe I've been doing that. I need to stop doing that too.
Amen.
I 100% did that. I spent years out here. Nobody would talk to me. This kid that we know, he's had dogs a couple of years. He don't hunt a whole lot. He's into other things too. Deer hunts too much, and whatever. He wants to go fishing and bullshit. But the kid is pretty new, you know. And I could have been, well, I've been doing this since I was this big to a whatever. No, I'm like, dude, I'm on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And he put me on to my favorite place to hunt. Like if I'm gonna go by myself, I
Yep.
love going in the Catalinas. And I never would have went that close to Tucson in my life. Looking at a map, I would have never went in there.
Yep.
And it's so full of game, you know, and
Yep.
this kid showed me right to it, 24 years old or whatever he is.
Yep.
You know,
And that's the thing, you never know, like
Yeah.
like I felt like lucky that, like Brandon texted me one day and said, hey, I'm gonna go camp here for a few days, do you want to come up and go? He's like, I know your dogs aren't down here, but I just come go with me, let's do this, let's go do that. And I was like, hell yeah, and I showed up, learned.
And we had a pile of questions the entire time. Me and Jared were picking his brain the entire time we were out there.
They did, and I asked questions back.
Yeah,
it was a mutual learning.
It wasn't you're
experience.
better. It was, what do you know? What do I know?
No, it was exactly. It wasn't. Brandon was like, oh, this guy's been in it for 18 years. I should shut up. I should not talk. I should do this. Instead, it was, hey, this is what my experience. What's your experience? What, what do you have about this? And I asked him questions like, what do you know about this? It was just straight coming together. We both enjoy dogs. We both enjoy mules. We both enjoy what we're doing. Why not? This is great.
Just an example of something I learned from you is how much further I can push my mules. Because I'm newer to mules, I think, when you first get into livestock, you want to take care of them because they're an investment, they're a big thing, and all these stuff. But you can push those things a lot further than you realize. And watching you on a mule and watching you, kick Mac around and stuff like that, and by the way, that mule will go anywhere. I've been riding him a lot more, and he'll go anywhere. And but it's amazing. It's just like you see these things, and you think that you know something, and you're like, this I'm doing, and everything I was doing is safe, but I wasn't pushing the limits. I wasn't pushing them a little harder so they can learn, and pushing things a little bit further. And I think that's an aspect that we have kind of gone away from now compared to the old timers, where they'd ride up on a camp where they had 2 or 3 dogs of their own, 10 dogs of their own, and these guys got 15 dogs in a camp, and they ride up on a camp and they talk and they sit there and they trade stories and they go and hunt and they go and some guys will take dogs this way, some guys will take dogs that way, and we've lost that camaraderie because it's become such a competition in between us.
I don't think we've lost a camaraderie. I think dry ground lion hunters are built a little bit different than a bear hunter. Like when I'm bear hunting, I don't mind hunting with people. When I'm lion hunting, I like to be on my mule by myself. I'm kind of picky, and maybe it's because I'm 50 now and I'm getting to that. I don't want you around, but I've been doing this by myself. And when I go, I'll take my son or my daughter. I know. But so be nice to your elders. But I think
the sad part is I have more gray in my beard than he does.
I know.
Just for men.
But I heard Chris Powell. They're talking, and if any of you guys want to go to the Hound and Mule sale, let's go. I'll jump in, come up, get in my truck. We'll go up there. Chris Powell asked if we could help. You gonna go?
Yeah, I'll be there.
What day? What day is that?
Are you going up to sell, or are you going up to just visit?
No. I talked with them. I think I'm either going to sponsor or do a booth, something like that.
Okay. He needed help at the gate Friday. So if anybody wants to jump in with me or whatever, we can.
Is it in Colorado this year or New Mexico?
It is. Hell. What is it called?
Hesperus, Colorado.
Yep.
It's just above the border. Not much farther from where they had it last year.
Yeah.
So you are going? I'll probably go.
I think Jared's coming out too.
What day? What day is it?
18th and 19th of July.
Yeah.
Well, shit. I think I just plan on going up there then. How long you staying up there?
Just a day or two.
Are you going up Thursday?
I'm not 100% sure yet. I called and talked to. I think it was either. Pretty sure it was Wade.
Oh, Chris Powell called me and asked if I wanted to come up, and I kind of forgot about it till just now, but that's happening July 18th, and he needed some help Friday, and then Saturday we run around and do whatever. But
I'll go if I can make some money. If I can, get squared away before then, I'll go.
So
well, if you guys want to go, you could come to Sholo, jump in with me, and we'll fly up there or whatever we can. We'll talk about it later, anyways.
Yeah.
But Chris Powell said something, about the West, and that hounds things kind of bring together in the West, and I related because of the rendezvous, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have people all over the country coming to our rendezvous, and I think when it comes to that stuff, that's when you start really kind of making, and I went and hunted with Jeremy and caught him some squirrels because he said just something in a tree. He didn't tell me exactly what he wanted. He said, I need to see something in a tree, and Stinker took care of it. From there, got kennels and a couch. There you go.
There you go.
And so I think he's right? Like, I think we do need to come together a little bit. We don't necessarily need to go hold each other's dicks while we piss, but we need to know.
Well, but just even like Dustin and Jared and I going up to, check out some new country together, it's like you don't hear enough of that going on where guys are just going, hey, let's just go get together and go ride some mules around, go follow some dogs, and just, who cares if we catch anything? We just get up there and go. It needs to happen more often.
Yeah, that's a big thing I noticed moving out west is that it's the most unfriendly bunch of dog hunters I ever met in my life. Nobody wants to hang out together. Back east, it's a regular thing. There's guys hunt together, and
it's definitely
just saying. If you don't talk funny, it's not as hard.
That's exactly right. Can you talk normal? I want to hear you talk normal.
I can. That's how I answer the phone at work.
Well, let's hear
it. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, give me a minute. It takes me a second.
No.
Yeah, I can absolutely enunciate my words. I can talk correctly. I took a whole speech class so I could talk on the radio and answer the telephone.
Try that.
It can be done. Yeah. Golly.
Hey, come out and hunt, man. Come out and hunt now.
just saying.
It's a different click, I think, because of the fact that it takes so much more effort in order to make if we're talking dirt dogs, if we're just talking dirt dogs, it takes so much effort in order to make a dirt dog that once you finally figure it out, it's like a mad scientist figuring out the cure to cancer. You're like, I don't want to give this away. I want to keep this for the people that are in my circle, and that's it, because you feel like if you give it away too much, it'll turn into your golden doodles and all that crap that's out there and all that stuff, because that's the way that
I don't think
you have to send something to somebody who's going to hold the same standard as you. If they don't hold the same standard as you, it can't be relied upon for that lineage to continue on. And you have to have, like, I just got given a 3-year-old dog from a guy that, I think it's a test of trust as well, because he's giving me this dog in a sense of, you know what, I trust that you hunt a lot. I trust that you hunt hard. But it's also that if he calls me one day and says, hey, I need some pups out of that dog, I got to make sure that I can provide that dog to give him some pups and not be the jerk that's going, no. It's the middle of the season. I can't do that. Sorry. It's just the way it is. And that's the way. And it's a very tight way of, it's this kind of a good old boys club upon good old boys club upon good old boys club.
It goes back to the Kool-Aid, right? You have the Kool-Aid just right, and if some bitch comes in there and says, man, I'll put a little more sugar in it, you're like, whoa, there, buddy. Not in this camp, you're not. You better bring your own Kool-Aid. And it's tough for me in general to take a dog. I just got dogs from Brett Vaughn, and I have to, it's just, to me, Jared, I got that stupid little Hondo pup out there. It's barking at me right now. And now I look at him and he knows I got a BB gun and he tests me, that little sucker, but he uses his nose, right? But, and it's just because it's not my line, I'm almost prejudiced. I already have that wall up, like,
it's hard.
It is. It's really hard. And I think hunting style is the same, right? To hunt with somebody, and then especially if they're going to jump in with you and put. Now Elizabeth Bolin has been the only person we have shoved all of our dogs in a truck and went hunting.
So let me speak to this. This is a different situation that I've never been in. Going with Brandon and Jared was the first time I went and hunted with someone else that I didn't take my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, and I didn't express this to Brandon or Jared when I went, but it was hard for me not to speak up in certain situations and say, "Hey, we need to do this," or
Yeah.
or like,
because you're the guest,
or
right?
yeah, like Brandon invited me, said, "Hey, come camp with us, come ride my mule, let's go hunting, we'll go do this with the dogs." And so it took a lot for me in the end to say, you know, like the first day, we hit a track, dogs trailed, we rode this way, dogs went this way, we stopped, came back, went down this way and caught up to the dogs. And honestly, I haven't like spoke this to Brandon, kept it in all myself. Like in my core, it was so hard for me not to be like, hey, we need to ride over to those dogs. We need to do whatever we can to find a track before they take off and go so far. But instead, I just sat back and was like, you know what? This is their show. This is their rodeo. I'm going to just experience it, do whatever, you know, it's their show.
Drink the Kool-Aid no matter how sweet it is.
And not being rude to Brandon, because I respect Brandon. In the end, we went, I think we went backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
we did go backwards.
We got to a canyon where the dogs came in. We found some scratches.
Yep.
And what we had seen is the dogs trailed backwards. And from what I'm normally used to, as soon as I hear a dog strike, whether it's a good dog, a young dog, an old dog, and from what I heard, like when we started, Brandon's like, all right, you know, Lacey struck, we're going good. And then Buddy struck, which means Buddy is a broke dog that doesn't strike on anything other than good game. So I was like, all right, you know, we're good. But to me, I still have been around the dry ground world enough that I was like, you know what, there's never 100% guarantee we're going the right way.
Yeah.
But in my lack of not wanting to piss someone off that invited me, not wanting to do this, I didn't say, hey, let's go look for a track and make sure we're going the right way. And in the end, we went backwards, and I was still like, hey, this is just my opinion in the end. And Brandon respected it. Jared respected it. They're like, you know what? I think we're right. And I'm not saying I had so much more knowledge than them that they just listened to what I said. We all came to the same conclusion once we hit it. But it was hard for me to not just be like, hey, dude, like, what are you doing? We should go check that track. We should follow the dogs long enough with them to make sure we're going the right way. Instead, I just sat back, let it happen, and went from there. and you know what?
That's tough, especially in a lot of this country where you can't find a track.
It is
for a ways. And
yeah.
Am I going to go down there and I'm just going to look around at nothing, or am I going to go around and find maybe that one little patch where that lion stepped, where you just see that perfect lion track right there, and you're like, holy shit, there it is. We're going the right way.
And honestly, the next time Brandon and I hunt and his dogs strike, whether my dogs are there or not, whether it's just his and Jared's dogs, next time they strike, I will be different because we know each other enough now.
It takes that learning.
That I'm gonna be like, bro, you're trashy dogs.
You know,
I'm checking them.
Hey, listen. Hey, listen. You don't fart at the table on the first date, right?
No.
Yeah. You're back.
You wait till later. And then you let them have it.
Both days we ran it backwards, and that second day we were running across nearly all grass, and then
it was hard.
See a track.
We couldn't.
We finally could get to a spot where we could see a track. We jumped off, and boom, Dustin and Jared found a track like that, and it was going fucking backwards, and we were like, hey, we're done. We're going backwards. And thank God we did, because it ended up pissing rain on us like crazy after.
Yep.
But
it did.
It's just one of those things that, you know, and like, that's the learning curves of dry ground hunting too, is when you're early on into it. Like, I have to trust my dogs a lot more because my eyes aren't as good as somebody who's been doing this for 15 years that's been looking at the dirt that sees it the same way. I remember my very first time going out with Jared, and I mean, I've been to Arizona and I dry ground hunted, and you know, and like in these aspects of, in places where you could really see a track really, really good. But my first time hunting out with Jared, when I was down in that desert country where it's not as easy to see a track in some places and stuff like that, and he's pointing out tracks, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, how the hell did you see that? And it's kind of blowing my mind. And then I started paying attention a little more, and we drove by, and I go, hey, stop, back up, and we found a track, and it worked. And it's like, okay, you have to change the way you're looking at things, and it all depends on how you started, where you grew up doing it, and how long you've been doing it. It's so many variables, and truthfully, like, even though I've been doing this, like, I don't know, like 9 years, I've had dogs now, hounds, and it's like I'm in my first few years of strictly dry ground lion hunting, and every single day I'm out, I'm learning something. And I think that's why it's so absolutely addicting, because if you're a person that wants a challenge in your life consistently, you want something to conquer, you're probably never going to fully conquer dry ground lion hunting. And that's what makes it so damn appealing. It is always, every single time you're out, there's something to be learned, something to be achieved, something. It's just a new day every day. Doesn't matter.
Even in the same area.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to, and I can't remember what it was, but like Benny said something a time or two ago about a guy he hunted with, that when he hunted with him, he asked him a question, and that guy was almost 70 years old, that did nothing but hunted lions his whole life. Can you remember that, Chris? And he came and asked Benny a question. He's like, hey, this lion did this.
That Hendricks?
Yes, Larry Hendricks. Larry Hendricks asked Benny a question after hunting lions his whole life, probably 40 plus years, and said, hey, I had a lion do this. What do you think? Like, it was something new to him. And he asked someone else a question. Like, it's always learning. Always.
And it goes back to that story I tell about the tractor on the semi that got stuck under the bridge.
Yes.
You have 5 engineers that's been doing it for 20 years, and a 10-year-old says, let the air out of the tires. And they're like,
yep.
God.
Yep,
exactly. And I do the same thing with private investigation. I overthink. You overthink. We overthink, right?
It's human nature.
And I pull my book out that literally says Private Investigator for Dummies. And I will please do that. And I'll say, oh, God, why didn't I just let the air out of the tires instead of change all the tires, So, yep. Real quick, Arizona, the azhhr.com, the 2025 Arizona Hound Hunters Rendezvous. That would be August 22nd, 3rd, I should know, around that weekend. So hopefully, Brandon, you show up. It's going to be a good time this year, I think. I got to get it together, guys. So I got to start getting it together. And we have a watch being built by what is it? Wild
American Timepieces.
Wild American Timepieces, just for AWDA, with a little insignia on it, our logo, and we're gonna raffle that off. It's gonna be a cool deal. What else? Is that it? I think so. I'm just trying. I don't mention the Arizona Hound Hunters Rendezvous enough, but you can go to azhhr.com and figure it out, or azwda.com and check.
That's on the 21st, right?
That's on that weekend. So the 22nd,
22nd to the 24th. 22nd to the 24th.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I think, as far as when we talk about, interrupting dogs or jumping in the middle of it or whatever, right? And we talk about these old timers that had the best dogs, those guys essentially. I mean, I think that there was a lot more, select culling done in those days, that if a dog was real trashy, it just couldn't stay around. But we talk about jumping in the middle of it, and one of the things that always sticks with me is that Jared tells me a story about how he was hunting with a an old timer. And, Jared was, the dogs were going one way or doing something or the other. And Jared went to go jump in, and the old timer stopped and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "do you have a nose?" And he goes, "No." Yep. He goes, "Then shut the hell up and get out of the way." Because sometimes we get in the way too much, and it's okay. Yep. And I think our ego gets in the way a lot of, if a dog runs a deer one time, it's going to be the end of the world for that dog. Rather than let that dog go learn a lesson. And when it realizes it's by itself after 5 miles and it has to find its way back to go find those dogs and has that little bit of that internal anxiety of where's my buddies, it might teach a lesson on its own to not go do that again. And if that dog continues to do that, continues to push on, since, we are on the topic of, how to train puppies and things like that, is, maybe that dog's just not meant to be for you, whatever it may be, or whatever you're hunting, maybe to go somewhere else. Obviously it has drive in it, obviously it has heart in it if it wants to go train, chase something, but obviously that dog just might not be for you. And so I think that's part of the thing that we have to recognize at the end of the day, is that we don't have a nose. We don't always know what's right. We think we may know. And in aspects like, I absolutely agree with Dustin. I should have, cut off the trail and went and looked for tracks and things like that more, for 100% sure. But I do also think that sometimes, especially when you have the ability, when it's more of a free range thing where you don't have a client, you don't have, any pressure behind it, let dogs be dogs. Let them figure it out. Do the damn thing. Have a fun day. Learn yourself too, because I learned a lot those couple of days. I absolutely love it. Days when I can go out with no pressure, just myself, it is the best time I have being a houndsman. It makes me so happy because I'm out there doing something I love, learning with my dogs, understanding my dogs. And even right now, I got all my females, they're just coming out of heat, but they've been in heat. So I get to go take, my 6-7 females at a time out just by themselves. And I learn those females specifically. I'm learning exactly what that dog is doing a little bit more. I'm seeing how those dogs are hunting together as a female pack versus with the males, and what different influences are there, because I have some males that are very, I think, in my opinion, are very vital to my pack. And then I'm taking them out of the equation. I think it really helps because we get hung up on, I want to take my best dogs all the time. We really do that. We do that a lot because obviously every day you're going out, you want to have the best day possible. You want to utilize your time, but take those worst dogs sometimes. Take those dogs that are going to make you happy. You just got to suck it up, drink an extra cup of coffee that day and grab an extra bottle of water and go, you know what, this day's probably going to suck.
That's when you're going to use that GPS. That's when you're going to use that Garmin.
Well, you'll get those young up and comers that rely on those good dogs. But the minute you take those good dogs out of the equation, you're going to find if they have it or if they don't.
Yeah.
But it's hard, and holy shit, it's frustrating at the same point to do that.
I would like to give, because since there's obviously we're on a platform here and we got so many listeners, I'd like to challenge guys to go.
Andy froze. I love it.
There's a dry ground houndsman for you. Leave you hanging. Oh, that's his internet. That's his internet. He'll be back.
Yeah.
He's straight stuck.
There you go. You're back now.
Bro, you froze right after the word challenge.
Yeah.
You said challenge, go. And that was it. Oh,
still
no. Wait. Hang on. You got to unmute it.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. I'd like to challenge everybody to take your dogs. If you can't take them to a different state or a place that you can kind of essentially dry ground hunt, take your dogs out in a time that you normally wouldn't take them out. Take them out in a different season. Do something like that and hunt with them a little bit more. Hunt them in a place that you normally, in a time that you normally wouldn't do, and recognize those different things that you're seeing. You're going to see so much more, because I know I moved to Arizona so I could hunt with my dogs. That was my biggest motivation for moving to Arizona. I used to live in North Idaho. That's where I got into hounds. And hunting with hounds up there, you listen to your dogs. You don't hunt with your dogs. You don't really know. You got to understand every sound of every dog. You got to have a really, really good ear and know your dogs by sound and know who's doing what. And you got to learn to read a GPS. And that's a place where GPS really does come in handy. And I will 1,000% agree with that.
Yep.
But I would challenge everybody to go out in a place and hunt something, or go try to hunt something and be with your dogs more. You will learn more about your dogs in 2 weeks of hunting with them in a place where you normally wouldn't hunt. I used to come down from North Idaho and hunt in Arizona in the middle of the winter because Idaho would get so snow deep, you couldn't even do it after February where I was at. And I would come down to Arizona and we'd hunt the dirt. And it was hard, and I learned some lessons, but I promise you, I learned more being a houndsman and learned more about my dogs than I ever could have just listening to them running through the hills. And that's what got me addicted to this.
Yep.
It's a different aspect when you are out there, boots on ground, hunting with your dogs versus cutting them loose and letting them go. And I would give that challenge to everybody to at least try it once. It may not be your thing. It may not be for everybody, but I think you should at least try it once to know, what you're made of and what your dogs are made of. It'll open your eyes a little bit, I think.
I think if we go back to what Derek said about finding a mentor, don't look for the big name. Don't look for the big name either.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of little guys that are 10 times as good as Warner Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have the experience he has, but they do just as good as work as he can, or any of those guys.
Well, I think reach out to your community too. Don't feel like you got to stay within your own inner circle. Reach out to the bigger hound community. Get a hold of me and be like, hey man, what are you doing in X month? And
let me know when you're going to go out and can take me if you want to.
Right.
Yeah. Same.
Tim,
I'll go with anybody. I got boots.
Unit 4 is where I hunted a bunch, Tim. But it's honestly, like especially with the way of social media nowadays, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to teach me a damn thing about this stuff. Honestly, I mean, I had some slight guidance starting out, just kind of slightly giving me more so what not to do's, I guess. But we have so many people out there. If you reach out and you have and you just say, be vulnerable, be like, hey man, I don't know nothing, and I really want to learn, and I'd love it if you teach me. I bet you'd be surprised.
I'll tell you how to vet a good mentor. If he tells you don't get dogs because you'll be an idiot, don't get dogs. Don't do it. That's the guy you probably want to run around with, because he's telling you for reals, don't get dogs. I've told people, do not get dogs. Stay with somebody, just hunt with them, go rake his crap, buy him some dog food, put some gas in his truck. Don't get dogs. That's the guy you probably want to hunt with.
I agree. Go spend some time and learn it. But...
Absolutely don't just. And then here's another little tip for anybody listening. I have a guy right now that doesn't have a clue with dogs. Took him to the hound trials. He wants to do dogs. And I said, no, you don't.
Well, but you know what? You either have it or you don't. And
that's what I'm saying.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I will say from an outside perspective, I think what we get wrong out here, especially guys that pound the dirt like we do, we act like we're hunting aliens on Pluto or something. It's not altogether different than other kind of hound hunting. It's just the conditions change. The game moves different. But the difference between, between chasing coyotes with foxhounds and chasing raccoons with a blue tick, that difference I would say is bigger than the difference in running bears with walkers or running a lion with a walker. That difference is not that big. There are definitely specific things that you got to learn, but it's not like you get a guy like come out here, hunted his whole life, and then you're like, well, let me teach you about handling a dog. Well, motherfucker, I know what's in the food goes in, but you act like it's the guy's first day. There's a big difference on an 18-year-old kid and some guy who's just hunting a new piece of game in a new country. You know what I mean? And I think that's polarizing. I think that pushes a lot of people away.
I'll tell you what the difference between a dry ground lion hunter and any other hound hunter is your capacity for disappointment. Your capacity for days that are going to be so fucking painful that you're going to want to quit but everything inside you tells you to keep going. That is the difference between the difference of a standard hound hunter and somebody who wants to hunt the dry ground lion, because it takes more perseverance and more guts. I have been in some of the worst places in the world, through the military and stuff like that. And being a hound hunter is the hardest thing I've ever done, hands down. A dry ground lion hunter, a dry ground lion hunter is the hardest thing I've ever done, because
patience.
Yeah, absolutely. But it breaks your heart.
That's the difference
on a daily basis, but you'll keep coming back for that heartbreak. It's your capacity for the pain that you can endure and the amount of time that it takes, because you see what it takes to be. You've seen the people, and we've all heard the stories of the people that are the hardened dry ground lion hunters of the last century. We know what those guys went through in order to become the style and the massive icons that we look at them at, is because they went through so much pain and time and putting in the time, and they figured it. They had an IQ for being a hound hunter, and when they finally figured it out, they stuck to it. But I'll be damned if you ask any of those guys if they didn't go through more pain and heartache than they did success, and they tell you that they went through more success, they're a liar. Every one of those guys went through way more heartache and way more pain than they did successes. But it's part of the story. It's the story that comes with it. It's the romance behind it. It's truthfully, yes. It's a romantic thing.
Amen.
Yeah.
You said disappointing, and this is why. When I'm running bear, I definitely am not looking for tracks. When Dirty is running and I let him down, and he rigs and I let him down, and I say, okay, maybe, and I let him down on just a shitty rig, right? Mm-hmm. He'll run around, whatever. And I know it's a shitty rig, and I know he's just doing it so he could get down and go piss all over everything. But I do that, and then I let him back up. I don't look for a track hardly. I'll walk up the road maybe. When he blows up hard, I still don't look for a track. I let him go, and how he comes out of that truck and don't give a shit about a tree or a bush, I know I'm going to let two more dogs down. Now, a lion, here's the disappointing part about a lion. When they're trailing and you ride a mile over there and you see that effing track, and you know that last one I was on down south, they were trailing up. I'm like, oh, I'm going to catch this sucker. And I ride all the way around the mountain, and I found that track down in that valley, and they lost it down in that sand. You know the lion was there. You know they're trailing it, and you know you're not going to catch it no matter what you do on how the dogs act. That's the difference between lion. Like you see, she just brought up Sasquatch. We need a Squatch talk. This is kind of funny. And this is kind of, I'm going to use this. No. I know. We're not going to break into it. Juliana, but listen,
I got a piece.
If you see a Sasquatch and that dog opens up on it and you see it, you're like, holy crap. Now, if you don't see it, he didn't even want to go. He Irished us out just now.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean, though? You see it like a bear. I have seen bears running across roads, and I have lost them. Yeah. My dogs have lost them. Yeah. So,
my whole thing is that is right there is what I'm talking about. Like physically, it's the hardest hunting that I think maybe sheep hunting. I never did
mentally
that.
And physically.
I would disagree mentally, because nobody ever. No, let me finish. Y'all don't.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Nobody never hunted lions as hard as they could 5-6 days a week their whole life and never caught one. If we're just talking about them, I don't know. Mike Root catches lions.
He's went 10 days on a hunt.
No, I know, but that's not. I didn't say 10 days. I said their whole life. The only people that I know that chase after something with dogs their whole life and never get it done. I've said it before, and I get everybody mad. I think that making a dog that can catch a lion in the dirt is not as hard as making a champion coonhound, because more right here. Between the three of us, we have more dogs that have caught a lion in the dirt than have ever won a world championship. You guys will hunt their entire lives, every day, all week, all the time for 40 years and never make a winner. And they're doing the same thing as far as they know as the John Stricklands of the world and the Dual Murphys, but they're not winning.
But
and it's like, what the heck?
I would wager if you put the tenacity and the drive of a dry ground lion hunter against a competition coon hunter, and you put these guys on the goal of achieving a world champion coon dog, we as dry ground lion hunters would fucking take that world over in a heartbeat.
Well, how many?
You know how I know it? That's not true. Because nobody ever did it. And you can make $1 million. If anybody can make $1 million hunting dogs and they thought it was easy, they'd go do it.
That's the difference. We're not about the money.
It's not about the money. It's not about the money. It's about Jared said it. Jared told it to me best. There is nothing that is crazier than a dry ground lion hunter because it is the craziest addiction in the world. There's nothing more than you catch one, and it's good for you for about 3 days, and then you are out on your mule, and your heart is hurting to catch another one the next time. I promise you, it's not about. There's no money in the world that can create the passion that a dry ground lion hunter has.
That's not what I'm discounting. See, what I'm saying is if it was so easy. Mm-hmm. Every one of us would go win us the world, make all of our money in 3 weeks, and then just hunt lions the rest of the year.
Answer me this: how many of them coon hunters that are competition coon hunters would take a dog out for 10 days, not catch something, and keep that dog?
None of them, because that dog will never win.
Right.
No, because that dog will never win. If he's going to go 10 days blanking, that dog will never win. That's what I'm saying.
Take a dry ground lion and take that dog out for 10 days, not catch something.
We're talking apples and oranges there.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I came out here and made a dog and caught 2 lions. I ain't never won a world title. It's way harder because a lot less guys do it. It's way harder to make that winning dog than it is to make a dog that can catch a lion.
Here's another question. If I hire somebody to take my dogs out, like some of those guys do, have handlers for their dogs, and do it every day like the Africans do over there, I would have better dogs, right? But we don't. We hunt our own dogs. Right. Some of them competition guys have handlers that run their dogs.
Well, no, not the guys who win. Like a guy like Ike Rainey owns a dog, but he doesn't hunt him. He's an old man. Yeah. So Dual hunts the dog for Ike. He hunts every single day, and he just won a world championship. But he hunts
every single day, right?
That's his job.
Yeah, but you're not running 12 miles hunting every day with a coon hound.
Yes, you are.
Let me take somebody like, let's just say a name we all know, Darren, right? Mm-hmm. Guys, they catch on average probably about 50 lions a year. Mm-hmm. Roughly 50 lions a year, right? The amount of time that it took to make that kind of dog took way more time in the capacity of the amount of dogs they had to make a championship coonhound dog, right?
Oh, that's true, and that's because I think of breeding. So I think breeding is the reason for that.
In the comparison, if you took a dry ground lion hunter with the amount of drive that they have, because these guys, like the guys that we all looked up to over the last 100 years, right? They would go, like, especially before tracking collars and all these things, these guys would go and follow their dogs and camp behind their dogs for 5 or 6 days straight to catch one lion. If you took that capacity and you traded it over to coon hunting, where it took you 5 or 6 days to catch one raccoon, and the value of that, because of the what you're getting out of it, right? Like, out of a raccoon, you're not getting the meat, you're not getting the pelt, you're not getting all these crazy stories of all this shit. You're gonna probably not ever do that. So if you're taking a measure of time and effort of what it takes to make a dry ground lion hunter, and you compared that to a coon hunter, that would be the amount of tenacity. I would absolutely 100%, if guys went and dedicated all of their time and power to only winning a championship coon, I guarantee you within 2 years maybe 3 years, because of, guys would have to work their way into circles of getting dogs and blood and raising a dog.
Anybody can buy any dog in the East. Anybody can buy anybody's dog. You
can buy anybody's dog here for the right price too.
Right? Yeah, you got enough money. It takes money sometimes, and and that's what it is too.
Here's another question: Louisiana hunting. I'm trying to get him on. He's hunted here with his dog. That 9 or 16 miles a night is, I'm going to say, totally different than 9 or 16 miles in the desert.
But that's what I'm saying. Like what you're talking about, camping for days and hunting, that used to be the way in the coon world too, 100 years ago. The difference is out here, we look back at the way they did it 100 years ago, and we're like, man, they had it figured out. There, they were like, we want better dogs. So they spent 100 years breeding dogs that were more bred to the job.
Now, one thing that I heard you say one time about like the breeding in the East is better than the breeding.
I didn't say
that. I understand
more advanced.
Yeah,
more advanced.
I do understand what you were saying there. Is that they have a more controlled environment, and so they can pay attention to that, and so they can tighter breed their dogs in the sense that they know what they're doing more. They really do. It's a more controlled environment, so you 100% know what your dogs are doing more.
Why is that? That you never see your coonhound. You never see him again. They cut the leash. You will never see that sucker till the tree. You're looking at a Garmin. We can do that here.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if we were like, look, you've seen the country we hunt out here. If we had to stay behind our dogs there, we could absolutely do it.
Not those dogs. They're too fast. I'm telling you. Ask Jeremy.
Our dogs.
No, those dogs are my dogs.
Let's just Jeremy.
My dogs average 11 miles an hour in this country. In that country, they're blowing them. Dogs out.
Can you hunt them dogs 10 days, 6 days, 3 days in a row?
Yes, sir.
In this country?
I don't know about in this country. My country's different. I don't have any rocks.
Well, that's different. It is different. You're right. You're right, Jeremy. It is totally different. And that's where I say it's like kind of comparing apples and oranges in that sense, that it's like it's really tough to compare a coon dog to a lion.
But I'm not trying to compare the dogs to the dogs. Yeah. My whole point is that you are more likely to make a dog that can catch a lion in the dirt than you are to make a world champion.
You're talking about world champion. That's how many dogs are back east that are trying to be a world champion?
A lot.
A lot.
30,000.
How many dogs in Arizona are just trying to catch lions? Like, and we're not a competition. Like, it's not a competition. Jeremy has 6. I have 10. You know what I mean? There's a lot of dogs and a lot of money. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if I said whoever catches the biggest lion fastest, the biggest and the fastest, and I'll give you $1 million, every damn person in the world would be trying, and they'll burn their dogs up.
Yeah. I feel like you guys get like, I feel like a lot of guys get offended and misunderstand what I'm saying. The idea that lion hunting is some impossible task, so I'm not going to help you do it. I'm keeping it all to myself because it's so hard and so special and only I can do it. That mentality, I think, is a problem, because you're telling a guy who threw his whole life into something.
But we don't have a coon at every tree. We have lions in 20 square miles.
Here's the thing too, is like when I was saying about the Derringers, like it's at your capacity. Like what do you want? How many lions do you want to catch? Do you want to catch 2 lions a year and that's what makes you happy? Or do you want to catch the majority of times you go out? You know what I mean? Like, do you want to go out and catch at least once a week, or do you want to catch 2 weeks out of the year?
Brandon, how many lions you catch last year?
In the last season.
I'll say season.
In the last 6 months, I've caught 4 lions.
Jeremy, how many coons have you caught?
That's
you
not
caught
the
3.
Point.
That kind of is the point.
No, because there's more coons. So that's the apples to oranges thing. It's not about can I make a dog tree a coon. There's
a lot more game.
You can tree a coon with a cattle dog. You know what I mean? Treeing a coon is not the thing. It's treeing a coon in like 4 minutes every time you take the lead off for a year while hauling that dog all over the country. That's what's hard. You have a different
goal, right? Your goal is time and speed it's speed to treat.
Yeah,
our goal
I'm not comparing the dogs.
Track, I guess.
I'm not comparing the dogs. I'm just saying I think it's every bit as hard to be a guy who catches 30 lions a year and a guy who wins.
I would
like
say
John Strickland.
Equally as tough to be a world champion coon hunter as it is to be a lion hunter. I would.
That's
say
what I'm saying. It's not easy.
Yeah,
it's
I
easy.
would 100%.
That's like snow and dirt hunting. It's hard to tell to hunt snow in 3 foot of snow. It's hard to hunt
snow.
dirt.
Fuck the snow. I did it one time. It was no fun. I stay on the border.
I
like
think that's
the dirt.
how you're comparing. I think that's a good comparison. Is they're both hard to do in a certain, and just like you said, it's hard to make a world champion, but it's hard to make a good lion dog.
Exactly. It's if you're at the point of if you want to be the comparison there is a world champion coon hunter is as good as a guy who can catch a lion in the dirt, is what you're saying right there. And that's on an even capacity if you're talking about just catching a lion. If you're talking about catching a lion on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, we're talking different levels there.
See, that's where I disagree though, because I can catch a lion in the dirt given the season.
Not weekly.
No, I didn't. That's what. But you said if you're catching them weekly, that's different. I'm also not a world champion.
You're higher. You might be able to catch a lion in the dirt, but how was that? Like what I want to. There's a difference between. Okay, if we're being bluntly honest here, there's a difference between catching a lion in dirt and trailing a lion in dirt and catching it. Because catching a lion in the dirt sometimes could mean, just like Jared's as honest could be, his first lion was a pop-up lion. You know, he got out of the truck, he turned the dogs loose. That lion basically just walked there 5 minutes ago. They cut that track, they screamed up, and they caught that lion.
That's the only way I catch them. Is my dogs blow big circles and pop them up.
Right. But if you want to talk about catching a lion that was there 14 hours ago, and you're going to catch him today, you know, where you started that track, where that lion was there 14 hours ago, let's say. And those dogs push and push and push and have the tenacity to push and push and push and catch that lion in the dirt. That is it. I mean, and we are talking apples and oranges here, because it takes a different type of dog, and we're talking speed versus, you know, nose and brain on that sense. And because it takes brain for a dog to push a track fast, and it takes a brain for a dog to push a coon track fast, no matter what even if that coon track could be 6 hours old, you know, that coon may have got out of that tree, you know, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're there at 10 o'clock at night, and that dog hits that track and it pops up that tree. It's just a shorter race is all. So I think you're right on comparisons on certain things there. It's just, I think that the dry ground lion hunting in the perseverance side, it takes a different type of dog. It takes a dog that can go, man, I'm hurting, my feet are sore. It's after 3 days, 4 days that I've been after this same damn lion. And you know that dog, they smell that same cat. Every cat has a different smell, just like every horse and every dog and every person has a different smell. And that, you know, that dog, after 3 or 4 days, that's after been that same lion, if they can keep pushing that same exact track and they put that lion up eventually, there's something in your heart that I think that's the romance behind dry ground lion hunting, is that after 4 days of you and that dog pursuing that same exact cat, and you finally put it up and you catch it and you're sharing that moment, that's a special thing. There's something in your heart that just explodes for those dogs, for the fact that they finally found the thing that they were looking for. You finally found the thing that you were after. Your mule can finally take a break after 4 days of whipping its ass. But at the same thing, in a coon hunter, you go out and you catch one coon a night at first, and then you catch 2, and then you catch 4, and then all of a sudden you're catching, 5 or 6 coons a night, and you're like, that's what rips your heart out. That's what makes your heart excited, and that's what we're all after. As hound hunters, it's a pursuit that will never end. You know what I mean? Like, don't matter if it's a lion, don't matter if it's a bear, don't matter if it's a coon or a fox or a coyote or whatever it is. It's a pursuit that never ends, that after you catch it, your heart's bleeding for that next catch.
And that's the sucky part, is you get out here and you don't trail them for 3 days. Well, I can't do that. If I couldn't get anything done with dogs like that, because I can't hunt for 5 days in a row. I got to work.
Right.
So I got a day here, 2 days here, whatever.
Well, you know what your capacity is then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You understand yourself,
And-
you know yourself enough that you know
Yeah.
this is what I've got and this is what I've got to work with. So this is the dogs that I need.
Yeah. But a lot of guys won't do that. A lot of guys wouldn't have went back east and pulled dogs that they know they can get and made them dogs work here. A lot of guys have been like, man, these unfriendly sons of bitches won't even talk to me. I'll just move somewhere else. But that's what a lot of guys want. And I don't understand why we're trying to run guys off when there ain't that many of us in the first place.
Well,
there's plenty of lions down.
There's plenty
down
of
where
people
I
out
run.
here. There's plenty of people out. Jeremy, you've been out here. I want to hear your 2 cents.
What? I just never did turn my dogs loose, so I don't really know what they're going to do out there.
But you watched Casey Fair's dogs work.
Yeah.
You know, you watched him as a houndsman, and he was friendly. If you called him right now and said, I'm coming down, he'd say, come on.
I've been with 3 of y'all. 3 of y'all. Of course, now I'm an outsider. I'm not hunting in your backyard every weekend. There's the difference.
That's why they was nice to you.
But what did you think of
that's also
the difference in dogs?
Yeah, compare the apples and oranges.
Well, they're different.
You know,
I mean,
it's a different dog.
Well, let's just compare apples to apples. Casey's dogs look different than everybody else's. You know, he's got little small red dogs. He did have one blue tick, but that's what majority of his are. And he had one black and tan. You know, we'll chalk that one up for Jared. Jared's dogs look just like mine. You know, big gangly looking Walker dogs and one little black and tan that look like a blue tick to me. But anyway, and then Chris has got these horses that he calls dogs, and
I only got 2 of them. The rest are small.
And you know, hell, they ran a horse for about 3 miles, and then one bailed out the window and caught 2 squirrels or 3 squirrels. But no, I mean, you know, and I've hunted in 3 different, you know, perspectives. This country right here is like hell on earth. Where Chris is, you know, it's easy. You know,
the beautiful thing about Arizona is
right.
You don't
it's
like
diverse.
Very versatile.
Travel
and
an
then,
hour, you know,
and then go down to where Jared took us. I mean, you've been down there.
Yep.
You know, it's not bad walking. I mean, yeah, the elevation got me, but
it's dry.
It's dry. Yeah.
Yes,
sir. It can be. Yeah.
I like Jared's and Casey's, but well, I don't know. I saw tracks everywhere I went, but you know, and
it's a nice part about that sandy country is you can actually see tracks. But you know, I've hunted all the way from the Canadian border to the Mexican border with hounds. I've hunted in pretty much every Western state that you can go, you know, catch a lion or a bear in, and every state is a little bit different. And I've noticed the difficulties in each state. I've never had the opportunity to go out east and hunt, but I've talked with friends who have gone out there and bear hunted and things like that, and they've shared their perspectives on it. And you know, the eastern bear hunting is a heck of a lot different than even up in North Idaho, where the country's kind of similar. It's very thick and things like that, but those bears bay up a lot more in that really tight country because they're so dang fat they won't tree. You know, and you get these really mean bears that'll tear dogs up and do all these things. And then, you know, I've hunted in Wyoming. I honestly think is the scariest state to hunt. It's terrifying there. There's huge drop offs. There's 1,000-foot, you know, just sheer cliffs that'll take you right off. And there's icy snow that's really tough to trail in. And then, you know, I've hunted in North Idaho and South Idaho, and it's totally different. I've trailed all over in places in Utah. And all these country, you know, in different places, it brings different perspectives. It brings different dogs. Each place has its own type of, you know, idea on what makes a hound. You know, really, like even up in North Idaho, they're hunting a lot more like the coon hunters there. They're taking more of the nose out of their dogs because of the wolves up there. They don't want to be cold trailing a bear for, you know, a day and a half or something like that, like we can do down here because we don't have the wolves. Up there, they want to light off. They want to find a bear track. They like, you know, you'll go and I've had my dogs completely. You're like, oh, that's a box blower. I'm going to turn him loose right now. You know, down here, guys would be like, oh, we got to cut him loose. Up there, you're like, nah, it's not that. It's kind of cold, you know. And you learn the way that your dogs are going to hunt in different country, and every place is so different. It really is. And you know, you go to one place and you feel like you know something, and you'll you'll be put on your ass real quick, because you quickly learn that each place is different. You know, as a dry ground lion hunter, we do think that we are kind of the superior because we hunt really hard, and we do hunt hard. That credit is not discerned or given in a small aspect. It is very, very well earned. You have to stay hard after a lion to catch it in the dirt and be good at it. But if we took our dogs out east and we try to go hunt coons, we'd probably be laughed at. Truthfully, we probably would. And the same other way. You know what I mean? It's the same other way.
I know that firsthand.
Absolutely. It's the same other way. And that's just, there's different walks of life in each perspective of dog hunting, no matter where you are. I don't care if you're even if you're, in northern Arizona to southern Arizona, you need a different dog. I promise you that. I got buddies that only hunt up here in the timber country, and they need a different dog than what you would need to go hunt down by the Mexican border. It's just a fact of the matter, and so therefore you're dealt with different perspectives everywhere you go. Everybody needs something different. So it's hard to sit here and compare each other's dogs. It really is. I think we do it because it's the easy conversation to have of, hey, what do your dogs do? What do my dogs do? But at the end of the day, all of our dogs have a purpose where they're at, and they're good at what they're good at for a reason. Guys who have coyote dogs, I've got dogs that were meant to be coyote dogs that turned out to be absolute excellent bear dogs. You know what I mean? And like, I've got a dog right now that I talked about last time that I got from a cowboy that was meant to be a cow dog that was supposed to be going catching wild cattle, and this dog's sticking its nose to the ground and going catching dry ground lions when it's a year and a half old. And it's just, every dog has its place, no matter what it may be. It's just up to you as the handler to figure out what works for you and what state you're working in and what's going to be best for the, what you're hunting, and how you hunt too, because Derek hunts the same country that I do, but he hunts different than I do. And Chris, same thing, you know what I mean? And it's like, Jeremy, you come out here with your dogs and it's just a little bit different, but I bet you, Jeremy,
it's a culture shock, because mine are used to water.
If you had a month to hunt with your dogs out here, they'd start picking it up.
Yeah.
If I had 2 weeks straight,
good dogs. I know
if I had 2 weeks straight, I catch something. I can say what, something. I could tree squirrels out there all day long. But, as far as, me being successful on the line, I know they'll run it. I put them on a 2-day-old track up there in Chris's country. And they took to it. I knew that the cat was long gone. But I just...
They still tried to run it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
that's a good sign.
Them tails went to whipping. Look just like, all the other dogs I've seen running in that country. I said, well, at least I know they can do it.
Time on ground, it changes everything. You know what I mean? Like, I have a dog. I've got.
That's my fault. That's my fault with him, because he found a track, and I wanted to go down and try to cut it where I thought it went, and we should have probably put it on that track.
Well, we both agreed, Chris, it's probably going to be on the reservation before we ever catch it anyway.
Yeah. Or you might have had a foal down there killed.
Yeah.
I've caught many lions where I caught the track, pulled them off. Next day they had to kill 50 damn yards away or something, where they might have been hanging out for a couple of days. But I mean, it's just how it is when you're a lion hunter. And it's the same with a coon hunter, bear hunter. Which way is he going to go?
Danged if you do, danged if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah,
right.
And it goes back to the Kool-Aid. How do you like your Kool-Aid? Derek likes to go fast. I like to hunt fast with bear. I like to slow down. And I use my dogs for everything. I'm that guy that takes my dogs. I hunted 18A over there by Seligman. I've hunted down south by Jared. I hunt right here. I hunt in Globe. But I'm not out to be famous. I'm not out to win $1 million. I'm not a Warner Glenn. I did shake his hand once, and I was 10% better lion hunter just by shaking it.
Well, see,
but it is. It's just how you want to hunt, right? It's just what you're comfortable with.
Well, that's just like Casey. His dogs run bear. I mean, he's been running bear when we came down and hunted with him. And he's like, what do you want to run? I'm like, I didn't come all this way to see a bear in a tree. I can see that at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or in a
let's go
loft.
see if we can find a lion trap.
But that kind of goes back. So like I've talked with a couple of older lion hunters who've done both. They've done bear and lion, and some of the things that they like to put into their regiment, I guess, is like, let's say they dry ground lion hunt off of mules. They won't use their mules when they're bear hunting, and the dogs will understand that. They pick that up.
I don't. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And
Casey.
I mean, it's a fast deal, so you typically don't want to be on your mules. Then when you jump on your mules, the dogs be like, okay, we're lion hunting now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Casey told me that he hunted, with his dogs when he's lion hunting. So he's either on foot or on horseback.
Yeah.
Yep.
Casey's also a feral cowboy.
I mean,
Casey would catch it on a 10. Casey would catch it on a 10 speed if you let him.
Yeah, this place where we're sitting, it's like you were talking about in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
1,000-foot drop off.
Yeah. Yep.
I just think that we could benefit out here from being a little more open to guys coming from other places. That was a big, like I say, a lot of guys wouldn't have stuck it out.
They're saying let's hold hands. We got to quit being assholes to each other.
Like,
and maybe,
yeah,
get together like they do back east.
The only reason I'm doing it the wrong way is because that's the only way I had to do it. I couldn't do nobody, And like I said earlier, I don't have.
Mentor's tough. Not having a mentor especially in the dry ground world, was very, very tough.
I knew
finding a good mentor is tougher.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
all the above, it all comes together, right? Like,
I thought I was going to come down here and be Dub Evans, and ride around, catch lions, and that's what I was wanting to do, And I did think it wasn't going to be as hard. I figured, and then it's a whole nother deal. So I go out and I try to.
And I still think that.
I try to find, where to learn this and learn that, and I'm like, you ain't gonna read it in a book. I don't believe I've probably listened to or read every book there is to read, probably everyone I can find.
That's more inspiration.
And that just gets you excited, but it's not teaching you what to do, what it's going to do, what the lion's going to do, and I'm not learning much from my dogs because, like I say, the only ones we're catching are the ones that they bushwhack. And
Boots
so
on the ground, though.
Yeah,
Boots
all
I'm.
Take it where you can get it sometimes.
Oh, I do, by golly. I'm like, let's go, get after it. I cut them. It's like a night hunt. I cut them loose and they're gone, and I'm trying to follow them, and then they blow up, and I'm like, here we either get it or we don't.
That's where I had the advantage. See, when Chris left, I waited on all the fire department to leave off the res, and I went and turned my dogs loose with my headlight on, and they went over and got on that lion track. But I had to pull them off, because it's not legal. Yep. I took them over to clean them out. And
I was running coons, man. Running coons.
For myself.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to no matter what type of hunting you're doing, you got to put all the time in the world that you possibly can. Whatever your life, has going on, whatever it may be, whether it's, you got a job that takes you away or whatever it is, if you're going to have dogs, you got to figure out your time management's the most important thing into having dogs. If you're going to keep hounds, you have to prioritize
how good do you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, you can either be a pet owner or you can be a hound owner. It's like, decide what you want to be. Do you want to put your dogs, have the best ability of giving them every chance that they can? And that strictly means time on ground, because there's no secret that every, no matter who it is, coon hunter, bear hunter, dry ground lion hunter, freaking Sasquatch hunter, whatever it is, whoever's the best at it puts the most time into it. And that's the only real secret to doing this, and whether, because I was trying to kind of say earlier, is I've got this dog, my dog buddy, he's 8 years old, 9 years old now. He caught me, however many lions in the snow. And I mean, it was never a challenge ever really with him. It was like, if I turn him loose, I know we're going to catch it kind of deal. And I bringing him down here, and the first time I brought him down, he was, he's kind of lost in the sauce. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I had him with other dogs that knew what they were doing and things like that. But it was time. I put more time on the ground. He learned, oh, yeah, it's the same thing I've been trailing my whole life. It's just a little different now. He figured it out, and all of a sudden, he's the best dog again in my pack. You know what I mean? He's been the best dog for, and he's never done me wrong, but it took time for him to learn that. And that's just the same exact thing as anything in this world. No matter what you do in this world, anything. You want to be the greatest free throw shooter in the world, you got to put in time. You want to be the best, it doesn't matter. It's like the best of the best are the best because they put in time. You know what I mean? And genetics come down to a big portion of it for sure. I absolutely agree with that. No matter what you're doing, you have to have good genetics. But at the end of the day, if it's your prerogative to hunt, like Derek's saying, he's got 3 days to hunt, he's got speedy dogs, they're going to take a hot track, then damn it, you got the dogs for you. You know what I mean? And if I have 6 days a week to hunt where I can go and trail a lion for 5 days and catch it on the 6th day, then that's the dogs for me. But we got to all – I do agree with you that it would be great if it would be easier to have conversations with folks about getting dogs from people, but I do understand the protection side of it too. Just like if you worked your entire life for something, you're going to not let some, punk kid who's 20 years old come in and just have a little taste of it. It's just the reality of the facts of the matter of what we're living with here. And, I wouldn't say that and this is where it goes back to what you said about the breeding, is that we do not produce as many on the consistent level of good dogs as the East does. So therefore, that's why guys are a little bit more chinchy with their dogs. I think, Derek, is guys that are, they have eight puppies in a litter, and they've got 4 promised to their buddies, and they've got 4 left over, and they're probably going to want to keep those 4 because maybe 2 of those are going to make it to be the best dogs. They're going to keep up with the dogs that they've got. And so
those breedings are kind of tight knit too, because they're either their own dogs or their buddy's dog.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
You can't like cross into it or nothing. That's just weird to me. I don't understand.
Right. Well, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and even when it comes to those guys who they have the best dogs and they have a lot of the best dogs, they maybe only have 1 or 2 dogs available throughout that year that they're going to actually sell. And it's not like they're selling up 10 of them. They're not selling 20 of them a year. So 2 of those dogs that they sell that year are going to go for a lot of money, or they're going to go to somebody that they know really, really well. And it's kind of like that, the grace of God timing thing. If it's meant to be, it'll be. And if you call somebody and you have a conversation and they just happen to have a dog available at that time, or they happen to have a dog, because most of the time when I've had conversations with guys that I've gotten dogs off of that have cost me money, they don't have a dog available when I call them. They call me 6, 8, 9 months down the road, and they say, hey, I remember you called me about a dog. I got a dog available now. Are you interested? And, it's up to you to pull the trigger then or not, and that's why the circle is so tight, because even though these guys have great dogs, not every dog in that litter turns out to be fantastic for them anyway, and so that's where it's so hard to pick up those dogs, I think, because of that perspective and that aspect going on. And those guys, they know people that they need dogs for still the same thing of protecting their cattle, protecting their livestock, things like that. And they're not doing it for a hobby, for fun. They're keeping it because they need to go and eliminate the threat that's on their livelihood. So I think that's probably why it's so tough to get. And honestly, my best luck that I've had, is just talking to everybody. Talk to everybody that you possibly can on the mountain. Give them a good vibe, and just say, hey, I'd like to come over and just have a beer and talk with you or something like that. And just talk with them, text them, call them whenever you can, bug them a little bit here and there, and make them feel that warm and fuzzy that, at the end of the day, you really want their dogs, but you keep friends with them, because I think friendship is more important to those people than giving their dogs away. And I think they have to feel that warm and fuzzy inside. So that'd just be my best advice as far as, maybe getting in those circles and stuff like that. But
yeah,
there you go. Well, and Derek actually has it's not like he can't come up and get on a mule and follow you around and see how you do it. It's not like he can't come up here and run with me. Even when he came up here, I think he said he got stuck. And I said, I bet I know where you got stuck.
Yeah.
I know that area. And I said, go here. You know what I mean? Same with Jared. You go down, run with Jared. Like, I think you have a good enough group of guys right here that would
y'all don't like to hunt with nobody. Jared hunted with me once.
Well, your time is your problem right now.
Yeah, that is bad. This end of the year was bad, but I did love hunting with Jared though, because my dog slowed down a little bit. That was nice.
It's a big difference, man. It really is. They have to. They just have to learn it. As all as I had speedy dogs, you know, like that was like up north. If you had a slow dog, you wouldn't catch nothing. You know, same thing. You wouldn't catch it, but. I've got half the dogs at least that I had up north. You know, I got rid of my super, you know, wound up bear dogs and stuff like that. Got them sold to guys that I know that they'd have good lives at. But at the end of the day, it takes time of just being with other dogs and learning stuff. But yeah, you ever want to come up and jump on a mule? You know, I got a few of them. Come on up.
I'd love to. I love hunting with anybody.
You know, I have a good story tonight. I was eating and like dinner wasn't done till like 4:45 or 5:45 or 5, and I'm eating real fast, right? And my wife is like, "Holy crap, I'm eating fast because you're eating fast," and she didn't know it. She was just next to me, and I'm like major pain. I mean, you see that? I'm like scarfing it down so I can get out here, and she literally, oh, sorry guys, there's a cop. There's a cop here, so we're gonna be real quiet now. We're gonna be real quiet now.
Chris, you're wrong.
Oh, there's two cops. I forgot. There's that guy. Yeah. Well, we could go all night on this. It's been 3 hours. I'm gonna have to break this up probably into 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation. No matter how wrong Derek is, it was a good conversation. And Derek's our guy we could pick on.
I will say this, Derek. If you want to see how not to do it, I will be down. The week after the 22nd. I'll be there for the 22nd, but I will be there, and you come see how not to do it.
Hey, I think I still say if you put them money pups on with some time on this ground, they'll be catching them.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, they are trashy enough. I have faith.
There you go.
I will say this: I will bet you $5 I'll find a line track for the first or second day. I
already know. I'm camping next to you because your dogs call them in at night, and then we'll put the hounds on them in the morning.
That's a fact. All right, guys, we'll continue this next week, I'm sure. Brandon, always a pleasure. You ask 1,000 questions, and people love it. And I think I was talking to Dustin, and I'm like, I think it's like anything else. You explain how to rebuild a carburetor to someone because you did it 100 times. They've never done it, and they don't know what you're talking about. So it's good to have someone that, like, kind of catches us and says, hey, what about this?
Well, I'm still in the learning aspect of all this stuff, and I feel like we all are really, truthfully.
Yep.
But at the end
you'll
of the
never
day,
stop learning.
Yeah, I'm so curious, and I've grown up on the saying of there's no such thing as a stupid question, and I'd rather ask it than leave it on the table. And I know that there's 100 people wondering the same damn thing I am. So let's talk about it. That's what we're here for. Let's get people thinking. Let's all think about it. Let's bounce ideas off each other. Hopefully, at the end of the day, we all become better houndsmen because of it.
Jeremy, thanks for jumping on at 11 o'clock at night. I said, I need you on. I need someone from back east. Derek needs some backup here. So
he never gives me no backup.
I know, always against him. I know.
It's everybody against Derek.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I agree with him in some aspects.
All right. Cheers, fellas.
Yep.
Yes, sir. We'll see y'all.
Congratulations, Brandon, on your marriage.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congrats.
Derek, thanks for your opinions. We love them, even though everybody jumps on you. Jeremy, thanks for jumping on late.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
I will be hunting, but it's raining, so
yep.
We'll see y'all next week then.
All right.
We'll see
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Well, bye.